Hey everyone, it's Wally. I don't have Nanette here with me. Well, it's Wally from Supreme Gecko. Nanette is coming in just a minute. Can you hear me okay at least? Do you see me? I think I hear Nanette coming up the stairs. She worked today, back to school. She is a special needs teacher, works with special needs kids. She does an amazing job. And tonight she had a class. So she's taking 3 classes too. And, she does all the work at Supreme Gecko too. So Nanette is a very busy person. So Nanette should be coming up in any minute now. I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed on what's going on right now at Supreme Gecko. But before I do that, I just wanted to say hi, Kara, Frank, Jay, Angie, Cassandra. How's it going, everyone? Did I miss anybody? Julie. Julie is in the house. Oh my gosh. Everybody's joining in. Tonight, we have a different guest. So you know me. I am into isopods and invertebrates and fish and geckos. I'm into geckos. I know nothing at all about snakes. I don't know anything about snakes. I couldn't tell a ball python from a reticulate. I couldn't tell the difference between any snake whatsoever. That's just how I am. It just hasn't been my focus. It hasn't been my direction in the last 20 years. I focused on geckos as much as I could, and baseball and the family and baseball and geckos, but not snakes. So we have somebody tonight, Jim Stelpflug of Southwest Wisconsin Reptiles, SW Reptiles, is joining us. And this is a special privilege for me to have Jim on. This is his first time doing a live, and I'm just flabbergasted at that. That is crazy to hear. Hey, Moon, how are you doing? So we're going to have, Jan is here too. Hi, Jan. So Jim is going to come on and talk to us about snakes. And you guys ask the questions, because I'm going to go like, what's a snake? I don't even know what a snake is. Want to kind of bring everybody up to speed on Supreme Gecko. We had a week and a half of activity in about one day, about a week ago. We are moving forward with a lot of different things, new products, new things for our Buy Me a Coffee members. A lot of benefits there. If you don't know, message me and I'll fill you in. We're way busy with shipping out products already from the store. We've kind of moved forward with that direction. We're going to be bringing a lot of products to shows. I tell you what, we're going to open up to breeders, gecko breeders, and that's my whole purpose. It's not so much of a money thing. If you look at the Buy Me a Coffee membership and the discounts that we're providing, we buy lots of goods, and what I'm doing with the Buy Me a Coffee members is giving a huge discount just based on the fact that we're buying in bulk, and I want to share some of that benefit to you guys too. Emily, thanks for joining us. Thanks for jumping in. What was I going to say? Next week, we're going to do some more promotions. I'm going to promote the products a little bit more. I'm going to promote the store a little bit more. I'm going to talk about the new tool that I didn't talk about during our Monday marathon, where we went 5.5 hours. 5.5 hours, you would have thought that I would have had an opportunity to talk about the new tool Notion. And I'm going to make that more public next week. I tell you what, it's driving my life. As much as I love spreadsheets, Notion has kind of taken over that niche in my life. And it kind of leads me to organizing what I'm doing. JP, thanks for jumping in. It helps me organize, but it also directs me to get things done. I've always said during my life, the one thing that I feel like I'm pretty good at is getting things done, because I'm organized and have things in order. And this is helping me to do that even more. Next week, and again, I want to mention this is a special guest for us today, Jim Stelpflug. I've known him for about 20 years or so, about that time, I think. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. But next week, we have Ron St. Pierre, another mega god in the reptile community. I'm very happy to have both of these people on today, or Jim today and Ron on next week. So make sure that you join in next week as well. Ron has dealt with geckos in the past. We probably won't talk too much about geckos with Ron. We're probably going to talk more about anoles and other reptiles that he's currently keeping. He's moved forward with so many other projects. It's going to be fun and fascinating to hear what he has to say about other animals. Oh my gosh, I'm just flabbergasted with the guests that we have on this show. I can't even describe it. So how long have I known Jim? Let me tell you a story real quick. When I started keeping animals, probably about 22 years ago, something like that, I started keeping leopard geckos. This is a little bit of a long story, but I'm kind of going to try to shorten it up as much as possible. 20 some years ago, no internet really. Internet was just kind of starting to come out, if I remember right. Couldn't find a whole lot of information. So I started keeping animals, and the very first thing that I wanted to do, because I had come from the fish hobby, I wanted to make it into a business. So to do that, I thought I heard Nanette.
You heard me.
Hi, Nanette.
Hi.
I'm telling the story of kind of how I was introduced to Jim. So,
okay. Sorry.
How was school?
Good.
Good. So, into animals, reptiles, leopard geckos, crested geckos about 22 years ago. After the first year or two, I wanted to start the business end of things. I wanted to, really wasn't any, websites out there. I wanted to start selling at shows. That's what I wanted to do. But there was no information on anywhere on how to sell at shows. How do I even start selling at shows? I don't know. I have no idea. Do I just grab it? Do I call the person and say, hey, I want a table, and let me throw my stuff down on the table, and I'm going to sell and prices, and I don't even know what to price it at. I didn't even know where to start. So the best decision I think I ever made was maybe I'll just go to a show. And I think that this was the Wire Show. What's a Wire Show? Wisconsin Reptile Expo, if I remember right. That goes back a little ways. I'll just go to the Reptile Show and see what they're doing. I have no idea. I'll take a notebook and I'll kind of walk around, and maybe I'll buy some other reptiles. I'm looking for more leopard geckos. So, hey, Grumpy, thanks for joining in. Went to this reptile show in Madison, Wisconsin, and walked around. It was pretty cool, and I kind of got some ideas on setups and everything. And another good decision that I made. And I tell you what, folks, if you've heard me once,
a few.
What's that?
You've made a few good decisions.
And that's a good decision.
You're right, it was
38 years ago or whatever. Cassandra says
whatever.
It's somewhere around there. So walking around, and a second really, really good decision I made to try to establish myself as somebody that's selling reptiles, reputable breeder, reputable salesman, was to find somebody that I could mimic. I'm not saying steal their ideas. That's not what I'm saying. And if you've heard me say this once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. Find 3 good mentors. And I walked around and I looked at people's tables. And I don't really like it, what he's doing. And that's kind of not really what I want to do with a reptile table. And walked around, and came across Jim's table. Number 1, very organized. Number 2, his animals were 100% clean, and every animal looked beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. And number 3, and this is most important, Jim was in front of the public and talking to the person that just like they were best friends. I didn't care about snakes. Why am I stopping at Jim's table? I don't care at all about snakes. But I bet you I stood in front of his table and I don't think he knew this, but I probably stood in front of his table for probably a half hour watching what he was doing, just taking it all in, just absorbing it. And I tell you, folks, if you're getting into sales at reptile shows, I want you to do the same exact thing. Find somebody that's doing it the right way. Find somebody that's doing it the right way and stop and watch what they're doing and take notes and take pictures if you can. Just take some pictures with your phone to kind of give you that, coming back home and kind of thinking about that whole experience of what they're doing right. So you have not only the mental notes, but something down physically down that you can look at later. So I stood around watching what Jim was doing, and it was maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes later, I finally started talking to him, and I kind of broke the news that I'm kind of thinking about getting into reptile shows, and I have some questions. Maybe Jim knew I was not a competitor. Maybe he didn't, I don't know. But Jim sat there and talked to me when he had a chance between customers, and every single person that walked up was a friend, not a customer to Jim. But he had time to, okay, hold on just a second, Wally. I need to talk to somebody and come back, and need to answer another question for me. Well, why are you doing this? And how do you manage cash behind the table, and how do you get your animals looking so nice, and how do you transport? Tell me about your lighting, and just, question after question after question. I'm kind of dragging this up, but I want to make it.
Did you warn him this could be a half an hour before he even
Yeah,
gets on?
and I did not tell him that.
You could go take a break, Jim.
You know what? Our viewers know that I blab, so they're going to hang in there with me, hopefully. So after all this time, I walked. Oh my gosh, Jim just left.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Come back, Jim. Okay, I'm going to Facebook him and say, "Come back, Jim. I'm sorry."
Half an hour later.
So yeah, half hour later.
But
so
you could
after
say a
all
lot
of these,
about him.
I could say a lot about him, and some of it even good, I think. So after a long progression of questions, I didn't have anything left, and I tell you, folks, I was done with questions. I didn't have anything, and Jim stood there and answered every single question, just like we had known each other for years and years. From that moment forward, I've always felt a close companionship with Jim, as number one, a mentor for me personally, but also as a dear friend too. Love him to death. He's such a good guy. Jim Stelpflug from Southwest Reptiles. Let me bring Jim on. Jim, are you here? Jim, are you here?
Yes,
Jim?
Wally. Yes. You said it would be a couple minutes, and I kind of knew what it would be. But
that's what I do. I blab too much. I just keep going on and on.
First of all, Nan, hello. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I did see this week that Wally was going to start selling supplies at shows again. Yeah. So apparently you'll be lugging a few more containers to and from the car.
Yeah, definitely.
The boys are all grown now, so I feel bad for you.
Yeah, it's me.
Right.
It's not me. I've got the geckos to take care of, and that's got all the, I say that jokingly, but honest to goodness, when we started looking at this about a month and a half ago, we've added 15 or 20 more products. And, I kind of did okay, we could do this, we could do that. And Nanette was the person doing all the work and planning and organizing. It was just incredible. Just incredible. You know how shows are.
Yeah.
You do so many shows. But before we talk about the business end of things, I want to talk a little bit about the business. I want to find out, and I know a little bit of this, but I think that our viewers want to know more about Jim, not the snake keeper, not the business person, but Jim as just a person. What's your interest? What drives you? What are your passions, Jim?
Wally, I've always liked animals my whole life. No matter when I was a kid, I had hamsters or guinea pigs, and I got older. I worked for my aunt and uncle on the farm. I had cattle. I showed cattle. I've always just been into genetics a lot. I really like to do genetics and do different projects, and I'm still, this is my 39th year in the reptile business. So when you talk about the ball python craze, that basically started around 2000. So I was one of the beginning people, and I got very lucky. I made a trip to Michigan to see Brian Barczyk. He had bought a bunch of animals for me, so my wife and I went up, and we spent the weekend with Brian and his wife, and I got to see the first pied ball python that there ever was.
Oh my!
Got to see it, got to hold it, got to drool all over it and everything. And, my wife and I talked about it on the way home. She was always been very supportive of, what we were going to do. I could go out and spend $40,000 tomorrow on a snake and she would never question it. So
I would.
that was always great. So Brian told me, he goes, Jim, these ball pythons are going to be the next big thing. I'm telling you. He goes, there's a lot of big females out there that the imported people have had for pets. You can buy them real cheap. You can take them in real cheap. He goes, just start collecting those. So I did. And then, Bob Clark had done the first albinos, and the first pair of albino hats were $3,500. So I bought a pair from Bob. I've been friends with Bob for many years. And I remember the first pastel came about. And, I didn't jump on that right away. But the following year, they were about $2,000. But I bought one from Mike Wilbanks. I paid $2,500. And a lot of people said to me, why would you pay that kind of money when you can buy it for less? I said, I think it's the quality. When everybody has these, I want to have the best. So, I've bred, it was not uncommon to have 3,000 or 4,000 babies a year. But I just didn't breed animals to breed animals. I always tried to put something really good up for sale, no matter whether it was going to someone as a pet, a future breeder. Always tried to have the best thing. And that really paid off, because the following year I was at a show and Mike Wilbanks came up to me and he said, I saw a lot of people walking around with pastels today. I didn't sell very many. How many did you sell? I said, well, about 8 or 9 of them. And at that time, now they were $1,200. So, I got my money back times whatever.
Yep.
I kept all the females. I didn't sell a female for about 3 years. But Mike goes, well, you sold more than I did. And I said to him, I said, well, I guess buying that animal from you last year and paying the price I did really paid off, and what you did. And it always has for me. I think quality is the number one thing. You made a comment about coming to my table and everything was clean. And I think that's important. I see people go to shows and have animals with stuck shed and things like that. And, if you're going to sell something, you're going to demand the best price you can get for it. You have to present the best animal you can all the way around. And everything you said about coming up and talk to me, Wally, here's the deal. I remember it that day, and I can remember a few months later, we were at the Lake County show together.
Yes.
That
Yes.
Nick used to put on.
Yes.
And, it was a slower afternoon, and you came up and we started talking, and I gave you some more ideas. And I think out of everybody that I've helped over the years, you're number one by far. But most people would never, well, I don't want to spend the money, or I don't want to do that. Where I gave you ideas and you did them. And I actually see you become very successful over the years. And I can remember for many years, and I'm going to tell you something that you probably don't know. You came to a show that I put on in Des Moines, Iowa for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got there, it was a little bit different because the tables there were 6 foot instead of 8, like every place else. And I said, Wally, I got 2 tables for you. I had a cancellation, which I did. I said, you got 2 tables today, and you have more room to spread out. And Christopher knew about this because I told Christopher, your son.
Yep.
And I remember Christopher at about 11:30 walking past my table. He goes, I'm going to the bathroom. He goes, you can't believe how much stuff we sold. From now on, we're getting 2 tables. Even Dad agreed. And, it was a big thing, jokingly. It isn't that I just wanted to sell you an extra table. I seen that things were spread out. And, I've always tried to help all my vendors. I had a gentleman one day, somebody came to the show looking for crested geckos. And, they were somewhat rare. We're going back quite a few years. And I had a kid there that had crested geckos, but he had them in deli cups that the lids were like a milk carton. You couldn't see what was in them. And I had a guy come up to me that I knew. He goes, I was looking for some crested geckos, but I can't find any here today. I said, hang on. So I walked him over to the table and I said to the kid, I said, hey, did you sell like crested geckos? No, not a one. So I said, this gentleman wants, so he bought them all. And the kid came up to me after the show and he's trying to give me $100. I said, you paid for your table. He goes, this is your money for helping. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, you sold my snake or sold my geckos. I said, you take that $100 and you go home and you buy some deli cups so people can see it.
Yes.
So about 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. I went to a show in Kansas City yesterday, Jim. I did better than I'd ever done by twice as much money. And I said, well, good. He goes, no, it's all because of the deli cups. And it made a big difference.
It does.
I don't mind helping people. I really don't. Sometimes I don't tell everybody everything I know, but if people are willing to listen and I'm not just talking to talk, if they're willing to accept help and they're going to help, I will gladly help you too.
It's hard because you don't know what you expect. You don't know what you don't know when you do a reptile show. And I'm over analytical. I can never do things spur of the moment. It's just not in my nature. So I have to plan and draw and chart out, and it's pretty bad. I mentioned that I talked to you at the Wire show. That I remember that next show was a Lake County show.
Yep.
And I talked to you some more. I also talked to you. You probably remember the fellow Jeremy Ledke with Upper Geckos. And I talked
very well.
Another amazing guy. So talk to Jeremy, and on the same wavelength here. Thanks. On the same wavelength, I talked to Jeremy, but I was very reluctant in what to ask him. I don't want to offend him. I don't want to step on toes. And that very first show, talked to him before the show, and now it's about 15 minutes, and he can see me squirming because I had marked all these animals, these leopard geckos, as females, and now I'm frantically changing them all to males. And he comes over and goes, what the heck are you doing? Oh, they're all males, Jeremy. I guessed wrong. They're all males. Look at this. You can see the bulge and everything. And he picks one up, Jeremy, he just picks one up, looks at it and goes, they're fat. You're feeding them too much. This isn't a male. It's a female. They're just fat. That's fat. That's not bulges from a male. So he was willing to stop, minutes before the show, walk over and help me out. And I think sometimes, you have to do that as a vendor. You have to pay it forward. You have to pay it back. And in my mind, it's always about you and Jeremy and Julie and a number of different people that have helped me so much with what I've done. It's my job now. It's my responsibility to pay that forward. So there's no question about doing stuff like that. And I know that you're exactly the same way.
Absolutely. And I think the times that we live in too, if we go back to 1990, 1995, the year 2000, things are much different than they are in 2020.
Yes.
By far. And it's funny, I was at the Schaumburg show and talking to a bunch of friends that have been in this probably longer than me. And a lot of them basically have scaled way back or gotten out of the business. And they're like, why do you still do this? I said, because I like to, I said, I guess I don't know when to quit. But it's amazing today because the person that wants to get into the gecko business or the snake business or any reptile today is so much different than when we started. You can make a phone call. You can order a rack. You can order an incubator. You can order thermostats. That didn't happen when I started. You built everything. And, I had an advantage because I worked for Blaine's Farm and Fleet as a merchandiser. So it was always important to have things neat and the best selling animals. But you always had to have people in the store. You wonder why the milk is all the way in the back of the store. It's to make people walk past everything else in that store.
It is
So,
annoying.
I took that same logic and put it into reptile business too. And I think I've always prided myself in having good displays.
Yep.
And, it's been beneficial. Years ago, we did the old Lee Watson swap. And I'll never forget, the Penn and Teller show showed up one time. And they were looking for people to interview, and all these people wanting to get interviewed. And they came up to us, and they just hounded me to be on. And I said to the guy, I'm like, well, why is it so important that you have us? He said, because you have the best display here. Everybody else has got cages full of shit and busted up and sharp and rusty. He goes, you've got all shiny lights and it's clean plexiglass. He goes, we definitely want to have you on the air instead of somebody else. So, that was very interesting and very good. We did the show, and, of course, if anybody wants to Google and look at it, it's a show where they also have nudicles. So if you get your male dog neutered, they put plastic balls, testicles, whatever, in the dog, so your dog doesn't look like he's been neutered.
Okay.
Oh,
So
That's
we're with
interesting.
the nudicles show.
So you're saying that we could go online, go to Google and look that up and actually see?
Penn and Teller bullshit was the show.
One, I'm way off on a tangent here, but one of the
Don't go
smartest
there.
guys I think there is. The guy is brilliant, and you probably picked up on that. Just an amazing, amazing guy, I think. Yeah, Frank says plastic balls. Those Lee Watson shows, give me a number. Take a guess. How many shows have you done? And, you coordinated the Wire show. You took over from Ed
Yes. Ed had the show.
Clark?
Um,
Ed Clark?
no.
Okay.
He was a veterinarian, and now I can't think of his name either.
Sorry.
Ed Stone.
Stone. Yes.
Yes. So, he had it at the Monona Community Center, and literally there was probably 14 tables there. So, Garrick and DeMeyer and myself, we both did the show, and Ed says, I just don't have time to do this anymore, boys. And he goes, you two guys, why don't you take it over? And Garrick looked at me, and, Garrick was just kind of getting started in the business. Him and Sheila were expecting, I think, their first baby. And Garrick goes, Jim, I don't have the time. I'll help you. I said, fine, I'll take it. Well, after having it there, and then the community center decided they didn't want to do that anymore. I had to find another place.
Yes.
And, I stopped and checked a lot of places out. I was at a show, and I ran into Richard Allen. And Richard goes, well, there's a bird show in town. It's at the VFW. Oh, okay. So I went over to the VFW and went to the bird show and talked to the people there. So they were skeptical at first. And, they wanted a $200 deposit and the whole 9 yards. And I really needed the building. So I told the lady, so tell you what, I'll give you a $500 deposit. I'll guarantee you that I'll buy at least 50 lunches. And, I turned it into what was going to be a money-making deal for them. And they agreed. And after the first show, we cleaned up and everything just went so well there. And I'll never forget, I told them just to hang on to my deposit because they're going to give it back. I said, no, I'm going to have more shows. Well, after about the 5th or 6th time, I was in there one day in the winter, finalizing some dates, signing the contract. And it was a Saturday. There was a couple ladies in there selling quilts, chances for quilts for the honor flight for all the old veterans. And they gave me back my $500 deposit. And my uncle was killed in Vietnam in 1968. So, you know, I'm very big when it comes to the veterans. I try to help out where I can and stuff. And I just said to the lady, I said, tell you what, here's $500 towards your trip. She goes, well, let me get you your chances. And I said, no. I said, somebody else is probably more deserving of that quilt. I said, let me give you a donation towards that. And you know, that was probably the best thing I could have ever done, because I could have ran for probably officer there and got elected. And we did another show too, where we were doing a benefit, and we had to raise money for the Wisconsin honor flight. A friend of mine made a bench and it said Wisconsin Badgers, and we had it on display at the show, and we left it there, and they sold chances for a month. They made like over $8,000 on that bench, you know. So it's been a really great thing, you know. It was nice. We had an honor flight where I live, based out of Dubuque, Iowa, and they had taken all the veterans. They were taking even Korean veterans and got into the Vietnam veterans, but they had gone through all of our veterans here, so there were no more flights. And it was kind of sad.
Wow. But what a good cause. What a great cause.
Exactly. You know,
incredible.
And there's a few other people in the reptile business. Troy Schrader, Best Dressed Balls. Troy's another guy. You know, he used to wear his leopard geckos years ago too, and so did I. But you know, Troy has gone on as a photographer and stuff like that. Donated his time, and you know, it's a great thing. My wife worked at a nursing home, and they were gonna send a couple of guys, and they're gonna have a bake sale to try to raise money. And I said, well, we're just trying to raise a couple $100 to get them some new clothes and stuff like that to go. And I said, you know what? I'll take care of it. You know, so, we got that. And I remember my wife and I taking one of the veterans down to the where they were going to leave to go to the airport. And then we went and picked them up. There's a welcome home celebration and stuff. And, it's one of the top 10 things I've done in my life. And I've done a lot of things, but just being in that atmosphere.
You mentioned Troy as well, and I knew Troy when he was vending more with the animals, Ed Wire and a couple of other shows.
Yep.
I met up with Troy at Schaumburg at Tinley at NARBC Schaumburg, and we talked for a long time. And same person, now that he was years and years ago, just most down to earth and caring and giving person, just a great guy. It's just fun to keep seeing the same people, in this hobby year after year after year. The Wire show brings a lot of good memories to my mind, simply because it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was my first show. And number two, yeah, I'm absolutely sure it was my first show. And number two, it always felt like home. It always felt like home.
And it's funny you say that, because, I did the show, and Richard Allen said, hey, I like doing this. How about I sponsor the show and I'll do the advertising and stuff. So, Richard came in, and a lot of people said, well, I should move to a bigger building or something. But, that building was the right fit for the time.
Yes.
And
yes,
to me, I've done shows all over the United States, but that show, to me, it wasn't a show. It was more of a family reunion amongst friends that we opened to the public.
Yes.
And you had, Terry. I can remember the first time I met Terry was at one of Ed Stone's Wire show. Came in, she shook my hand. She goes, I'm your neighbor for the day. My name is Terry. I raise crested geckos. And when people would come up and want to buy a crested gecko from Terry, she didn't care about the money.
Nope.
It was what they had in their house. It was like you filled out an application. I've seen, somebody said, well, we have a cat. Terry, nope, can't. It ain't going to work. Cat's going to stress them out too much. Your gecko isn't going to do good. And, I've always thought highly of Terry because she cared about her animals.
Yes. I have a bad story about me, and this was something that I did bad, and I have regretted it since that day that I did it. And I'll tell the story, but I want to say that this is in the beginning when I first started doing shows. and it's always been about, building up the brand and sharing information and developing a customer base. But I was doing a show, and Terry Kane is just the most wonderful person, but doing a show, and she was across, probably 4 or 5 tables away. I had sold a male, and I said, I don't have any females, but I tell you what, let's walk over to Terry. Walked over to Terry. Terry, I have a male. Can you match it up with a female? Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming over. So off they went. And the person came back to me after about probably 15 minutes and said, I have to get my money back for this male. I was like, what do you mean return? You can't return geckos that you bought from me. So I, gleefully paid. Oh, okay. No, Terry said, I can't have geckos because I have cats. And I said, okay. And I took the money back, took back the gecko, not a big deal, put it back on the table. But after the show, I went up to Terry and said, that kind of, that was hard because you kind of messed up the sale for me. That day when I was driving home, it was like, why did I do that? She cares about her animals so much. I have to go above and beyond and care about my animals as much as she does. So it was a great lesson that I learned. What is this, Jim?
Well, I had Jonas, who works for me, lives with me now too. I said to Jonas, I said, we really can't do the show in the basement because I don't think our internet signal would be fast enough and stuff. So I said, why don't you grab a few animals to bring up? So I'm not sure how well we're going to be able to see this.
Yeah.
But, this is a snake that wasn't supposed to happen. We bred a pair of pieds. We got 5 eggs and all pieds, and then we got an animal that looks like this. So it's a freak of nature in some respects. I know if some of your viewers here know a little bit about snakes or looked at snakes at shows, John Dagg has one of the famous snakes called the Stormtrooper. Black and white snake. Never been able to reproduce it. Was one of those things that hatched out that everybody wanted to buy. We all get usually one in our lifetime.
Yep.
I've had a few. The first one I was offered $100,000 for in Daytona for the snake and its parents. And I'm like, oh, no. Wow. I don't need the money. I don't want to sell it. But I should have sold it. So, but this is an animal that basically it's an all-white snake. And a girl put it this way to me on Facebook one day. She goes, it looks like the printer ran out of ink.
Yep.
So it's kind of a calico in the aspect that it's white and it's kind of gray and black. And, I couldn't call it calico because that's already there. We called it the squeaky ball. And the reason I called it the squeaky ball, I have a calico cat named Squeak. So we called it the squeaky ball. Now, paradox snakes and ball pythons, they don't happen every day, but they're not that rare. I mean, we'll produce 4 or 5 paradox a year.
Wow.
But nobody's ever produced one out of a pair of pieds. So there are people out there that seem to think that this may be the first genetic paradox. If that would be the case, it would be a game-changing event, I think, for the industry, the ball python industry.
Do you think it's genetic? And if it is genetic, is it line bred or is there specific genetics, from a morph standpoint?
It's a really strange situation. So when the first banana ball pythons came out, when you bred a banana to anything, all the bananas were boys, and whatever wasn't bananas, Kodam, were girls. 1 in probably about 20 would beat that rule, but on average, that was the case. Now, the weird thing about this snake is I had the pair of pieds. They had a little different look to them, but The females take about 3 years to get up to size, sometimes 4 on pieds. They're a little slower eaters. But the males you can get big enough to breed in 8 months or a year or so. Well, after, probably a year and a half, I bred the male to a few het pieds and different things just to make pieds, because we have a lot of people that want to buy pieds. I have a lot of pet stores that want to buy pieds for customers and stuff like that. So, we make probably 200 pieds a year. We make a lot of pieds. And, that male, when I bred him to animals, every pied baby that was produced was a female. Never a male pied until I bred him to a sister, bred brother and sister. And out of that group, there was 1 male and 3 females. And this is one of the girls. Wow.
So that's sounding like it's genetics. It sounds like there's some kind of a
I reached
there.
out to people that are a lot smarter than me, people that have raised a lot more animals than me. I think Justin Kabelka is probably the guy that if he makes something and shows it, that's what everybody wants to buy tomorrow. And, Justin was very interested in it, but he didn't know what it was either. And, everybody, it's funny because I have people all the time say, hey, don't forget me if that's genetic. I want in on it first. But Dave Kaufman does his Rattle On Awards. That snake won for the best snake at Tinley Park.
Wow,
now,
congratulations.
Out of all the things I've done in life, I think that's one heck of a great reward. There's a lot of snakes at Tinley Park. And for that to be picked the best, that I thought was something that's one of my top achievements, I would say. So,
and it absolutely is. When you get, I don't want to say notoriety, when you get recognized, when you get recognition for doing something like that, and viewers, it's not about recognition through money. It's just getting, a little bit of a pat on the back from the industry, from the hobby, from the community, which is well deserved there, Jim. It goes a long ways. It means, I've been working on this and it's never worked. It's fun, but you've been developing this line to get something like that. And I see, this is how bad I am. I don't even know if that's a corn snake. I think it is, but I want you to tell the corn snake story. Not right now. We're going to hold that for people. We want to, what?
I said, ouch.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You ran me over.
I ran over her toes with my chair. I want you to tell the corn snake story later, and I'll kind of fill you in if you don't remember.
Oh, I think I remember that corn snake story.
My favorite story in reptile keeping. But
so,
what is this?
Wally, you're somewhat close. This is a Theri king snake. It's a colubrid.
Okay.
So you're in the right family. But people always say, so what's your favorite snake? This is it. These Theri.
Really? Why is that?
Well, I think pretty much everybody knows Brian Barczyk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. BHB Enterprises, Snake Bites TV, Reptarian, the whole deal. One year I was at Brian Barczyk's place, and we started out. I was managing a pet store in Dubuque, Iowa, and we raised a lot of different reptiles and animals and stuff along with running the store. We had tables at Lee Watson Swap, and at that time we were breeding boas and Burmese pythons, lots of them. So I decided to get into the small snakes. I asked the guy that I was in partnership with on that, and he had no interest in the little snakes. He wanted just the big snakes. Well, I bought a lot of snakes from Brian, and the first time I had a lot of babies, I brought them in the show, and Brian's like, just put all them under the table. I'll take them all at the end of the show.
Wow.
And so we got talking later. He was, I don't know if he was vending in Europe or he had a customer, but Brian said, I'll take all the babies you got if they all look that good and they're all that fat. I said, yeah, I got more at home. So we drove them to Detroit, and I wanted to get into gray band king snakes. And at that time, they were hard to get to eat. And they still are today for some people. But Brian says, I'll tell you what, you're going to be here for a few days. Let's go ahead and feed the stuff you like. Let's feed a bunch of that. And then if it eats, you know that it's eating when you leave here. Great idea. So I really saw these and I was in love with them. And Brian goes, yeah, I only have one clutch. I couldn't get them bred this year. And he said, how'd you do with your corns? I said, well, I said I had 24 females and I got 24 clutches, but one of the clutches went bad. And he's like, you had 100% success? I'm like, yeah. And he said, I should send these home with you because maybe you could get them bred. I said, I got room. So I took his Fairhigh home and, I had very good success. And not that I was better than Brian. I think I had more time than Brian to devote and feed him a little better. And, when you have 100 animals, it's a lot different than when you have 1,000 animals.
Yes.
So, and they call these a variable king snake because if people are interested in snakes, you can have 10 eggs in a clutch and get 10 different colored babies out of these. Some are all black, some are orange, some are green, but there's a lot of different variation in these. So
is that the maximum size right there? So is that a good beginner snake or maybe not?
Not too bad.
Okay.
I think it depends where you buy them, obviously, but if you're buying one from me, yeah, it's a great beginner snake because I know it's going to eat. And you don't have to feed them lizards or anything like that. And people always ask me, so are you sending them with lizards? No, there's no lizards in Wisconsin, that you're going to go out and find in the backyard to scent these. And I think, too, as cruel as this sounds, I don't get into a lot of assist feeding or anything like that. I think it just breeds weaker animals over the course of time. I learned that from Dave and Tracy Barker many years ago. And I think that's, they've been around forever. They've done so much and they're well-educated people. I think that, if you follow in their footsteps, you can only go down a good path. So, that's kind of the reason I think I like the Faireyes because they were the first snake that was really a challenge to breed. And I had great success with them. So, and then, you talk about, well, we're on that same subject of animals with, they're not all winners sometimes. There's some sad moments in this business too. It just so happens to be, I had Jonas bring up a handful of snakes. I didn't pick them, he picked them. And actually, can everybody see this? What's this snake missing?
Eyes.
Eyes.
Is it really?
Doesn't have
Born
eyes.
with no eyes.
Oh, no.
So this is actually the world's first. It's a super special monsoon. So the monsoon project is probably the most exciting new gene in the ball python business because it was made by a down-to-earth great guy by the name of Dave Green that I've been friends with for years. And Dave just hatched one out of an ordinary breeding, a lot like the squeaky ball. And, I always thought that snake was going to be genetic. I talked to Dave a lot about it and stuff. And when he proved it genetic, he reached out to me and said, you've been a supporter of this from day one. If you want first chance at babies, they're yours. So I bought a pair of, I bought a trio of pets. I was the first one to get any of those. And then the following year, I bought the first visual male he had for sale, which was a crystal. So this girl's a super special, but she was born with no eyes. And out of all the snakes that I've produced in my year, well over 100,000 snakes, I've only named about 4 or 5 snakes. And this one we named Helen Keller.
Oh.
So, and I think the last snake that I probably named was back in 2004 when I had gone to Daytona to do the show and Hurricane Charlie hit. And I had bought one of the first pinstripe ball pythons from Brian Barczyk. And we called him Charlie. So
Why don't you name your snakes?
You know, I think numbers are a better system. Now, I know you're a computer guy. There were no computers in high school for me. They came a couple years after I graduated. So, I mean, I can get through Facebook really good, but that's about it. So, I, I'm not in the spreadsheets and stuff like that, and it's. I think that the number system just works great for me.
Yeah, does us too.
And I think this one with no eyes, and what's amazing about her is she's just over a year old. What I think the funniest part is, with no eyes, this snake is about 20 grams heavier than her siblings.
Really?
Which we saved. I've got 5 other siblings of hers there, and she's the biggest out of all the siblings. So on the front of these, can you see looks like they're heat pits?
Yep.
So actually a lot of thermal imaging and stuff. There's been a lot of research done with pythons towards that.
Okay.
And this thing, these heat pits is how they sense their food.
That was going to be my question.
So,
do they seem exaggerated from her siblings at all, or not?
No,
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
And the snakes with no eyes, a lot of people feed them off to other snakes or something like that. I usually have somebody that wants one. Says, hey, I'd like to have one. And if I have no problem giving one to somebody, if they're going to take care of it and they're not going to breed it.
Yep.
Because I don't know if it would pass on. I don't think it would, but I don't know. Now, this snake, being that the genes that it has, if that snake had 2 eyes, that would probably be about a $12,000 animal. So we elected to keep it, rather than just give it away.
So here's the question then for you, Jim.
Sure.
You have an animal that's so unique, but it has an issue. Let's say an issue. We don't know if it's genetic. Could it have been incubation? Something with the incubation, maybe something that happened physically down the road. We don't know that. Would you ever consider breeding that, keeping all the babies, obviously, and maybe breeding a line or 2 or maybe even 3 to see what would happen, to see if you get any other occurrences with that?
Well, being that she has the genes that she has, I had given a genetic stripe to some people that were here visiting from Nebraska, and they kept it, grew it up. It's an adult female, probably, I guess, 6, 7 years old. And I told them, I said, if you guys want to breed that this year, go ahead and breed it. I don't have a problem. It was a female, because I was kind of curious to see what they got for babies. And that would be, I'm on the fence about breeding her.
Right.
I think it's a very unique animal. World's first it's a neat thing, but when you've done it, we had, I think, 15 straight weeks where we had a world's first. The edge is gone for that thrill of it, but it's still neat. But I just think it's a nice animal. So,
in the gecko world, we're seeing a lot of challenges with new morphs, with crested geckos, especially with leopard geckos.
Sure.
We're not seeing new. We're seeing issues from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And we're realizing in the gecko world that we shouldn't really be doing this anymore. Lemon Frost, Enigma. We're moving on. We know that the genes are something there. Let's move on. Let's not do it anymore. And I think there's a few breeders that are still holding on to that. But I want to see what happens. And scientifically, we just know that it's not. We're not going to get away from the tumors and things like that. But that's known. That's over years and years, we've challenged that. Can we produce something back that has some of these genes, like the Enigma, beautiful leopard geckos, but without the spins and without the neurological issues? And we know we can't, but for probably 2 or 3 years we tried until we said no, we can't, and then we, again, the hobby mostly stopped and we moved on. It would be curious to see. It's hard though. It's not a line. It's gray. It's a big gray.
No, I agree. But I think it's faced in a lot of things. Corn snakes has something like that. Motley's in the boa world has that issue too, where you breed 2 snakes, you make a patternless snake, but then it's blind or it's stargazing. Carpet python, same deal there with some of the jaguar carpet pythons. So, I think the deal is, whether it's ethical or not to do so. And, I kind of look at each one on its own basis, though. So if you took a person that was born blind and they were to have a child, would that child be blind? Usually not, from the research that I've done. Now, I'm sure there's cases out there where, that did happen, but it's 1 in, 10,532,000, but you never know.
You never know.
So now this is actually a sand boa. And these are kind of neat. This is a female that we produced about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And, it's funny because a lot of the gecko people have sand boas. I've sold numerous sand boas to a lot of the girls that we know that have bought geckos. What's wrong with your neck, Nan? You got a problem? Stiffness today?
Stretching it out. Oh, my neck.
Carrying all those totes to and from the car that Wally loaded up. But, it's funny because so many girls like, I got my first sand boa from you. I just love it. But, these they have live babies, so you don't have to incubate any eggs or anything like that. And they're pretty simple. Males stay really small, like about 1 foot long. Females get to be about 2 foot. So this is an anathoristic one. This one we kept just because it has a high amount of white on it. So.
I have to ask, is that line, is it genetics, that extra white?
The mom to this, I have kind of a funny story. Back in the day when you could sell animals on Facebook, I had a friend in California that, he would run an auction page about once a week, and he had an adult anathoristic sand boa, female, and he was very honest. She had just gave birth a few days earlier, and she was thin and she looked horrible, to be honest with you, but they all do after childbirth. And I starting bid was $100. I bid $100 just to get it going for him. No one bid against it. So when the auction ended, he reached out to me and goes, "Hey, because you don't have to take that thing if you don't want it." I said, "I kind of do want it though." I said, "It's really got more contrast than what my animals have. So I think I would like to improve my contrast." And I said, "I've got white on my animals, but it fades into the brown." And I said, "I'd really like to have more contrast." So, we got her. She was a good, bred her up. And, this is one of the babies out of her. And I definitely got the contrast and the white. So I'm going to work on adding a little more white to it. But, they're nice. Nan, this would be ideal for Crystal to get into.
Oh, my gosh. Did you just open a door? Oh, my gosh.
Well, with kids got spoiled, I might as well spoil your grandkids.
There you go. I've got to ask this real quick.
I thought you were my friend, Jim.
Yeah, you just, yeah.
Nan, I love you. You know that. You're the best.
Grumpy Little Moose says, friend in California, wouldn't be treacher. I'm sorry, would it? Is it treacher? For the person that did the $100 the auction, was it somebody by the name of Treacher? T-R-E-A? No. Okay.
No, actually, you know what? To be honest with you, is it okay to tell the name?
If you want to,
Sure. Choice.
The guy's name was Mike Matson, and Mike bred probably more frogs than anybody has ever bred in the Pac-Man frogs and stuff like that. Man, that guy produced millions of them. I mean, lots of frogs. Great guy in the frog business. And then I don't know what happened. He just went MIA. He had enough, got out of it, sold everything. Now he's back on Facebook, posted a room with a bunch of racks in it. And I'm like, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm not totally sure yet, but I've got somewhat of a game plan. But then I seen him the other day that he's back with a few frogs and stuff now too. So
that name sounds real familiar.
Yeah, he was the guy. There was controversy over the blue Pac-Man frogs. You would see these frogs that were like literally bright blue, and everybody was buying them. But then after a month, they were green, like a regular Pac-Man frog. Well, they were being fed a color-enhancing food.
Oh.
And there was a huge lawsuit over this that he had with a breeder in Japan. So that may be, that was the big news on Facebook for a while.
Yes. Yes, Jim. Yes. And it's cool, saying that. If our viewers know anything about me, I'm not a color enhancement kind of person. I've seen it in fish. And
you don't like color on the walls or anything.
Yeah, beige. We should paint the ceiling beige. Inside joke.
I'm a color person. I like. But it was weird because when we had the pet store, there was canaries, and if you wanted those pretty red and orange canaries, you had to feed them something called carotene. Or what I did at the store, I had the girl that took care of my birds and stuff. She would grate carrots and feed them carrots, and that would keep the color with them and stuff too. So it's funny because I had a little neighbor kid here one time, and his mom always gave him carrots for treats, and the kid's hands were literally orange.
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, what do you got going on there? And she goes, it's from him eating carrots all the time, holding them and stuff. The color came off, and the kid must have ate a lot of carrots. So
Jen is mentioning Super Pig, and again, for feeders, carrots are a great food source, and I think that carotene passes on. But I'm definitely, and it's me, and it's my honest opinion, I am not a fan of Super Pig, even in the least. It's just
and I agree too. And I think when you sell something like that and it really changes dramatically, it doesn't make you look good, I think, in some people's eyes. And that's the way, with corn snakes, everybody sees these really pretty, the classic Okatee, and the normal corn snake is really bright orange and reds and yellows. The babies don't look like that. So people, they now with Morph Market and having to have a picture of the animal, which is the greatest thing that's ever happened. There's no surprises when you open the box. And, I think people, they look at that and say, well, that's never going to be like that. But if you I tell people a lot of times when they buy something, I know that's going to change for the better anyway. I say, you know what, take a picture of this every month. The first of every month, take a picture of it, and you'll have a really nice collection to go back and watch the changes and stuff. And people totally are fascinated by that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you what that is in just a second. I always feel honored when we sell an animal and we get a response back from the customer. And I know you're exactly this way. And, again, I'm just repeating what a lot of things that you're doing already. But when we get a response from a customer that says, your pictures suck, your store doesn't represent the true colors of this animal because it's way better. I'll admit I'm not a good photographer, and you coming back and saying that you really, really, really like what we produced made my day.
Wally, I get it 3 or 4 times a month. I just had it today. We shipped a lot of animals the last 2 days, and I had it twice yesterday and once today so far. This thing's way better than what it was on Morph Market. Well, here's the story. I'm a professional snake breeder, and at best an amateur photographer. The iPhone was the best thing that ever came out. I literally have spent over $10,000 on cameras and lights and tents and all kinds of round rings that are fluorescent lights that snap on the camera. I still have a closet full of that crap. You know, I could never take a picture with that. I look at the Gilpins, Andrew and Sarah.
Oh.
Man, one's better than the other. It's just amazing that the photography and they've helped me, and I just never got into it. I'll never forget, I bought a kid that worked for me an iPhone, and he broke it at football practice when he was in high school. So I took it to the Apple store in Madison. Never been there in my life. And I'm waiting, you know, and all of a sudden they have all this stuff that you can play with there. And I'm looking at their phones and stuff like that, and the cameras on them. And there's a guy next to me that's got a dime. And he's taking a picture of the dime and blowing it up. And I'm watching this guy, and I'm doing that. Well, I walked out of there with an iPhone that day. And then I found out that, you know, I can take pictures downstairs with my iPhone. And when I come upstairs, if I buy an iMac, they're already there. They're on something called the cloud. I can edit them right there, crop them down, do my auctions. Well, that's great. So, you know, I have an iPhone. I probably have 3 iPads around the house. Everything is Apple. So I thought when I had a BlackBerry, that was the best thing in the world, but I found I was wrong. Wally, what kind of snake is this?
It looks like it's a 3-foot snake.
Wally, you better know what this snake is. I don't know the variety, but what kind of snake is it?
I'm gonna say a pied.
There you go, you got it. So Jonas did a really good job. This is actually a lot of times I don't know what happens in the geckos as much, but you have the same animal named 2 or 3 different things.
Yes.
Okay, that happened in the ball python world. Not so much anymore, but probably in 2004, 2 animals were imported into the country. One went to Texas, one went to Florida. The guy in Texas called it a paint. The guy in Florida called it a sentinel. Everybody thought they were the same. A lot of controversy. Well, I happened to have the paint that I bought from Charles Gillespie. And I got talking to Ben Siegel, who people know from Ben Siegel auctions and stuff like that. Ben did the sentinel. He is the guy with the sentinels. And he had thought that they were recessive. The guy I bought my stuff from, he said it was a co-dom. And after I bred it, a year, I couldn't see where it was co-dom. So it just happened to be, we were in Daytona at the expo. Ben Siegel walks up, he's buying some animals, because he sold a lot of animals in the day from me. Sunday was wholesale day, and we got talking, and I wound up getting a sentinel female ready to breed from him. I bred it to my paint male, and then we proved that it was the same thing. Okay. So that kind of straightened it out. That was recessive. But, that started in 2004 with those animals coming in. The first paint pied was made in 2022.
Really?
And I made 2 of them. So it's been around so long, but people didn't do anything with that. But then you've got one guy in the business that worked with this, and he has a lot of followers, a lot of Patreon supporters. Once he had done something with it, then everybody wanted paint and sentinels. And so now we went from selling animals for, total bargain basement price for a beautiful animal. Now they're worth 5 times of what they were, back 3 years ago. Rarely does anything go up in price, but it was one thing that did, and it was nice to be in on that aspect once. But this is a female. So we made a male and a female. We were very lucky to make them. We made them with a pair of heads too. So.
And you said that this is recessive?
This is recessive.
Okay.
So the male, hopefully I'll breed to something, this coming spring, and I'll have a few more of them available then. So
you mentioned, we're going to talk about business for just a second here. You mentioned the whole you see something happen in the marketplace. Somebody pushes, some picture. Somebody big, a big creator pushes
Right.
pictures, and everybody wants them. Oh, I've got to have them. I got to have them. And obviously, Karen, thanks for jumping in. Karen, big time crested gecko breeder and just beautiful animals. And some of her animals people are starting to recognize some of her animals, her crested geckos. But in the crested gecko world, we started realizing that about 5 or 6 years ago with some of these morphs. And the market just like a jet took off. And now it's kind of evening out and maybe even going down because of the genetics and the way people are breeding them. Two questions coming here, and I'm going to get back to somebody asked about a specific question. I'm going to get back to that J-Bug in just a second. But from a market standpoint, did you learn early on to work with some genetics and to jump on that bandwagon with some genetics and to stay away from other genetics? I'll give you a real quick example, Jim. For leopard geckos, it was the max snows, because they were $2,000 a piece. And then the next year they were $1,000, and the next year they were $200 because it was a co-dominant.
Right.
Have you seen a couple of examples of that in the snake world?
Oh, many. I've known people to lose houses, cars, marriages, many things because everybody thought they were going to get rich quick. But when for example, let's take a banana ball python. I think people that are knowing snakes, they know it's a pretty snake. Everybody always wanted one, amazing. But the first ones were selling for $35,000-$40,000.
Did they know at that time that they were co-dominant?
They knew it was co-dominant. People were still buying them. I bought one, but I had the right females to breed it to that I knew I would be okay on. But you take an animal that you pay $35,000 for, and 3 years later, they're all over at $1,500. You got to sell a lot of them at $1,500 to recoup your money.
But you have to have that in the back of your mind. You have to say, okay, I'm going to buy in here, and I know that next year they're all going to be here. But like you said, I have this project over here that I could breed it into, and this one, and this one. So I'm never ever going to make this, but I'll make several of these back. I might not make the 10,000 that I spent on this animal, but I'm going to make 20 $1,000 animals. You just kind of have to play that in your mind a little bit, right?
Exactly. And, I think a lot of it is you want to have some experience too. And I think a lot of people thought that they could just jump in and do this right away. And, they were having problems, and, people said, well, I see you posting you just had your 300 clutch today, so you must know what you're doing. Well, yeah. Could you help me? Well, what do you got going on? And they start telling you what they're doing and their problems. And you realize then that they didn't spend $90 to buy the Barker's book, because they would buy a $5,000 snake, but not a $90 book to really learn. And I think the book thing is gone now. There's still a few old dinosaur guys out there like me that buy books, but he does too. Well, it's nice to be able to go back and reference that. But a lot of these people writing books got a lot of education and experience behind them. Yes. And I think, Wally, I think you could write a book, and you do very good with your book.
If I could read, I buy books to look at the picture. So, if I could read.
You buy those kind of books, okay.
A book. Yeah, that's my hindrance. What is this snake?
Well, I have a couple rules at my house. All the animals are kept in the basement. I don't want any animals upstairs other than my cats and dogs and stuff like that. And the reason being is, if you have a couple thousand animals and you're downstairs and you work with them all day or all night, and you come upstairs, you really don't want to look at them. You know, my dad worked for a meat packing plant and, was head of smoking all the hams and sausages, and his deal was the hot dogs. My dad wouldn't eat a hot dog because I see enough of those. I see, 30,000 pounds of them a day. I don't want to see them now.
Oh,
But so anyway, this is a Asian rat snake. They come from an area where it's really, they don't need heat. And I had bought them before, and I'll be honest, I killed them, and I felt bad about it because they're beautiful animals.
Yeah.
And I had bought the ones that were striped. They're called cock's eye. And found out now that they got to be kept in cooler conditions. Well, it was something I've liked. And Jonas, he's liked them. And he wanted to get a pair. And I said, buddy, you can't have them. They won't live. Well, I caved in. So now we have 2 snakes upstairs with 2 cats. So,
well, that's cool. That's cool. So what's the difficulty with this Asian?
The heat,
Asian
they like it in a cold environment.
Okay.
My basement is, this time of the year is about 80, 82. And in the winter, it's 75. And it's just too warm for them.
Okay.
So the key to these, and I talked to a couple really good people that have been doing them for many years, is keep them cool and don't power feed them. So basically, we're feeding them a big pinky about every 10 days.
Go ahead.
And we bought these at Schaumburg. So
very cool.
I didn't, we didn't have enough animals justifying setting up at Schaumburg. So we went to the show, which is always a mistake for me, because when you walk around a show, I just buy stuff,
It's just for fun.
Because when I set up at like Tinley Park, I might get to go an aisle or 2 each way from my booth, but I usually don't leave my booth. I just feel I should be there.
Ever.
So
we're the same way. We're the same way.
I've been fortunate enough. I did the Arlington show, and we had a friend say, hey, if you guys want an extra hand, I'll go with you. So he went with, and it was good because then the 2 boys could handle the table. I actually got to go around. I had a broken leg. So me and my walker, I saw every table and every booth at that show. I talked to a lot of people that I hadn't been able to spend a lot of time with for a long time, and I really enjoyed it. It was very nice. But we came home with a lot of new animals too. So,
but the difference there is, I'm going to point this out real quick, is that you have a lot of experience. You have a lot of contacts that you can talk to. Hey, I just got this new animal. I know just this much. Can you help me fill in the rest of the care and maintenance? So you can go through that. I'm highly opposed to somebody walking up to, one of our tables and saying, oh, I want to buy a gecko. What should I get? And then, not doing any research, not knowing anything about it, and buying it on the spot, spur of the moment, that's always hard.
No, I agree. I think I do see a lot of times people buy stuff that I really question.
Yeah.
I've been next to vendors that I had respected, but after vending next to them, no.
Yeah.
I've seen people. I've been very fortunate because with all the animals that I had, I always kept a job. I was working full time and still producing 3,000 baby corn snakes and kluberts a year. I would come home from work and, I was going to bed at 2 a.m. and getting up at 6 or 7. And, that worked good. And I really had a good system until it's 5 years ago this month. I got up to pack to go to a show in Omaha, and I just didn't feel good, and I looked at my alarm, and I had the girl, Jenny, that worked for me at the time. Yeah. I can go back to bed. I lay down for another hour, and I woke up and went to go from the bedroom to the bath. I took 6 steps, and I collapsed. My dog was sitting on my chest when I was found, and he's sitting on my chest, slowly licking my face.
Wow.
And for Friday, so they take me to the hospital in Platteville, and, small hospital. So load me in an ambulance. I go to Madison and had heart surgery on Monday.
Unbelievable.
The cardiologist I had was a fantastic lady. I did not like the lady because she didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. And, after coming home and stewing about it and thinking about it, I realized the lady was right. So I also had a really good boss at the time because he told me he actually lived in Madison at the time. He came to the hospital to visit me and he goes, just so you know, as of today, you no longer work for us. He said, by the way, he said, I'm going to pay you to the end of the year, but you don't work for us anymore. And I looked at him and goes, I like you too much. I don't want to watch you die.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, I appreciate that. He goes, Jim, I know that you're here because you feel obligated to me. And he goes, I appreciate that, but I don't want you working for me anymore because I just don't want to see you, go downhill. Well, you visit for a while, him and his wife. And as he's walking out the door, he says, oh, by the way, he goes, you get home and get back on your feet. If you need a job, we might be hiring, So it was, it was a good thing. So that was the wake up call for me that, hey, I just can't do it all.
Yeah,
so
that's major scary. I don't even know what to say. Jen said it best. We're glad you're okay. It's so scary. How did that? And this kind of relates to another question that somebody had. And I'm going to see if I can find it right here. How does that relate to? Did that change your keeping at all? Your keeping habits?
How do you
Can you
limit your collection?
Yes.
You're looking for?
Did I miss
Come on,
that?
right there.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. So TJ Exotics and more are saying amazing live guys. Jim, how do you go about limiting your collection? So going through this experience, an eye-opening experience like this, Jim, did it change the way that you kept your animals? Not so much kept, but how many you kept, what projects you were working with. How do you go about limiting your collection? And did that event start you to rethink that a little bit?
honestly,
Yeah.
No.
My space that I have in my house, I have, people say, oh, I got a snake room. Well, we have 5 different rooms. We have a ball python room. We have a clubrid room. We have a boa room. We have a baby room. So basically we have rooms and I only have so much space. When I realized I wasn't going to be working anymore out of the house, I had the idea. I thought, and my cardiologist said, maybe you should get like a hobby. Well, okay. So
Sure.
I did. I became a licensed USDA hedgehog breeder, which, so instead of, cutting back on animals, I decided every pet store I sold animals to, do you know anybody that breeds sugar gliders or hedgehogs? Well, sugar gliders weren't attractive to me on the aspect of the care they needed and stuff like that. They weren't a good fit. But hedgehogs like the warm environment, simple to do. I met a lady that was getting out of the business and was so helpful to me. And, I went and kind of helped her out periodically, and that was the best thing in the world I could do because no amount of books or anything like that could teach me what I learned doing hands-on.
Yeah.
And so, we did the hedgehog thing. Well, then COVID, came along and, and another thing too, a lot of people breed hedgehogs on the side and, maybe they're not legal or not. I'm not going to say anything because it's not my point, but we were legal. And people said, well, you're allowing the government to come in your house. I said, you can look at it that way. But you know what? I can say now with our snakes and our animals, we're USDA licensed. This place is clean. They can walk in here anytime they want. I have never had a bad report from the USDA inspector. So, that's kind of the case. And, that was one reason why I didn't want animals upstairs too, because, well, if you got two, it ain't any harder to have four. It ain't any harder to have 16,
There's my point.
Nancy, if you run into Nancy, she will tell you, I do nothing at all in a small matter. I get, so the last 5 years, my health has been horrible. I've died 3 times in 5 years. I've had kidney failure twice. I've went septic. I've had a couple of botched operations, and everything in the world that could go wrong, has gone wrong. But, this year has been really pretty good. I had my knee replaced in February, and that's really after I got done with everything there. It's weird not having a doctor appointment next week or in 2 weeks. So, COVID hit, and, I was stuck at home. The only people I was seeing was at the feed store, the grocery store, and the hospital. So, because I was going constantly. But, my health is good now. And I was sitting around the house with, I broke my kneecap. And they told me that they had to wait for it to heal before they could do anything. Well, then they said, you need a knee replacement. And I had to be on a list. And it was like a 6-month wait. I'm like, I have 2,000 mouths that depend upon me.
Yeah.
I can't, there's 2 of us. I can't do this. And, there was a lot of days that I literally, at the end of the day, I basically would crawl up my basement steps. And I give Jonas credit, because Jonas has gone to pretty much every doctor appointment. And, the last one we went to, we're sitting there and the doctor's telling me what he can't do and this and that. And Jonas goes, I'm going to tell you something right now. You say what you can't do for him. What can you do for him? He goes, I've watched this man crawl up basement steps at the end of the day because he knew he had stuff to do. And he said, I would kind of cheat. I would go out and get on my riding lawnmower and drive it around back and go in the basement door in the back of the house and drive it back up at the end of the day. But a lot of times I'm more of a nighttime person. I can't be driving my lawnmower at 2:00 in the morning either. So, and keep the neighbor. I got good neighbors. I am probably the best neighbor you could ever have, because with what I do in my house, my neighbors all know. People say, you tell people? You can't hide this when you become this scale. There's no hiding it. There was a trailer in the driveway that was lettered, with the business name on it for years and stuff. But I do have good neighbors. My town I live in is very supportive of what I do. I really am not worried about, anything that way, which not everybody has that advantage either.
No.
I've seen people lose their homeowners insurance over having a leopard gecko, of all things.
Yeah, that's kind of scary to me too. Now, you made the point that you're certified, you're legal. That has to be a huge relief off of your mind. I think about that too. We're doing the leopard geckos, and I'm doing videos, and I'm showing animals, and I'm talking about animals and feeder insects and everything. So I kind of worry about, somebody, one day knock on the door, hey, we want to see what you're doing down there, and scares me to death. But having that certification, Jim, I'm sure that it gives you peace of mind, knowing that you're clean bill of health and you're ready to go. Walk in, come on in. I'll show you around.
I didn't mean some of it too. The county reached out to me one day and said, hey, if we were to go into a tornado warning and stuff, do you have an action plan in place? And, pretty fast thinking. I sure do. I said, my animals are all in the basement of my house. So I said, the minute there's a bad storm warning, I'm always in the basement anyway. So I said, what we do is we keep a lot of cloth bags on hand. So I said, we just start packing animals that way. So in case there is a problem, they're all going to be in cloth bags. Now, can we bag up 1,200 adult snakes in that amount of time?
No.
But we could start. But,
you could start.
I have a plan in place,
And all plans are in the process of changing every single time. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions here because you've got some great questions and I don't want to lose these. Cassandra Pope is saying, Jim, did you do FFA or 4-H growing up?
Yes, I did.
Oh, very cool.
I did FFA, and 4 years in high school. It was funny. I had probably my most favorite teacher in high school was the ag instructor. He was a great guy. Our freshman year, he looked at our class. There were 53 kids in the class. And he said, I see a big cornfield in front of me. And we can't have this many people in this class and do it right. School system says it's a no-go. So I said, here's a cornfield. There's a few weeds in here we got to root out. So I said, we got to get rid of a few people. Well, here I am, town kid, working for my aunt and uncle on the farm, though. And, all my friends were in FFA and stuff, so that's where I wanted to be. And, he went around and actually over the course of a couple of weeks, he took, 5-10 minutes and interviewed everybody. And then he made a cut, and they actually wound up cutting 11 kids out of our class to fit in with the school. I made the cut. And, the guy said to me, he goes, you need to get a calf or something. Everybody has a program. He goes, I'm big on keeping record books and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'll get a project. I got into rabbits, started registered rabbits, start showing rabbits and stuff like that. And, I've got some nice animals. I had a local guy here. I didn't buy the breed that he had, but I did get some other animals. But I would go down and help him a couple nights a week, do stuff and learn and what the standard were for the animals and stuff like that. Well, my junior year of high school, and it was so funny because he always gave me a hard time. He thought that when he said get a program, I was going to buy 2 heifer calves or some pigs or something. I bought rabbits. Well, we all went to Wisconsin State Fair my junior year of high school. And that morning I showed and got done, and he was going to come up and get some pictures, and he got tied up down with the dairy cattle. And we had 4 girls in the class, and 3 of the 4 were just drop dead gorgeous farm girls. So I'm sure he was down watching those girls show their cattle, and I don't blame him. I would have been there too, but I was showing my rabbits. Well, he comes walking up to the rabbit barn as I'm walking out to go eat lunch, and he goes, "Are you done?" I go, "No, I got to go back this afternoon." And I said, I brought 5 animals here, and 3 of them are in for grand champion and reserve grand champion. And he just stood there, and the guy smoked a pipe. He pulled the pipe out of his mouth, and he cocks his head, and he looks at me and goes, "No, wait a second. You got 3 animals in for grand champion?" I'm like, "Yeah, out of the 5. I said, "I got blue ribbons on the other 2, but they weren't as good." So I said, "I got 5 out of 5 in blue ribbons."
Wow.
Well, that year, I actually had the reserve grand champion rabbit at the Wisconsin State Fair.
Wow.
So, for me, it was quite the accomplishment. And man, that guy it changed his whole attitude, towards my program. Well, the following year, our senior year, anybody that does FFA, if you're good enough, they have each school will pick. Our school could pick 5 people, and they do your program. You fill out, your record book and all your stuff. You send it in, and you can be acknowledged for the Wisconsin farmer degree. So, I sent mine in. He sent mine in with everybody, and this guy was real proud because he's usually ran about 80% of the people did well. Well, that year, all 5 of us got the Wisconsin farmer degree. So we're at summertime. I think it was June. We're at Green Lake, Wisconsin. All 5 of us, we're sitting in this big auditorium, and there's, I'm going to guess maybe 800 to 1,000 kids in there.
Wow.
And they're reading off the names. You come up and you get your award and stuff. And then they pick the state officers, but then they give out awards for the person with the best dairy program, the best forestry program, and different things. Well, that year, I won the award for the Wisconsin State Small Business Award.
Oh,
My ag teacher was sitting with a group of friends at a table. He wasn't with us. And another ag teacher from the Platteville High School told me later on, he goes, you know, Jerry just stood there in awe and was speechless. And he said the first words were, "That damn kid did it to me again." And, you know, it's funny because the first really good job, I mean, I didn't have a high school education. And, you know, a lot of kids, you know, they've worked for me. You know, the biggest thing is I want them to go to school. And I've got a young man right now that, you know, his dad worked for me for years. And, you know, he's in the 5th grade right now. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to breed reptiles. But I keep telling him, no, you got to go to school. And I told Jonas that too, and he didn't. And we had a little bit of a falling out over it. But, you know, I got very lucky in life. But the first real good job I had, I put on the application that I had won the Wisconsin, you know, state farmer degree and stuff like this. And the guy called us. There were 3 people for a second interview. And they picked me. And the guy said, you know, I like you because I have a farm background. He goes, I know how hard it is to get one of those awards. I didn't win one and you did. I want you working for me.
wow.
So, you know, it was very beneficial. And that's it too. People, I see so many people that, you know, they're going to quit their job and they're going to raise reptiles. Today isn't like it was back in the day. You know, you're not going to sell pied ball pythons for $7,000-8,000 like I had the opportunity to do. And, you know, the whole picture now with Facebook was the best thing to ever come along. I mean, think about it. My advertising budget just went away because we could do it for free. And then, you know, now, I mean, that cost all of us. I mean, a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money. So the Morph Market came along and, you know, I met John. I got very lucky on the aspect that when we did the show in Arlington, Texas, John was from Texas. John, his wife, his son all came. They had the booth next to us. And the whole family knew all about Morph Market, all the shortcuts. Man, John's high school son spent so much time. He was so good to me. John would walk around with a notebook, blah, blah, blah. So now we all have to deal with the new owner. I'm very fortunate in the aspect that I had been in Darren's store in Wichita. One time we stayed in Wichita because I had friends that owned a pet store there. And one of my friends, we've shared the same birthday. So we were going to have all of us were going to lunch the next day. We stayed in town. I checked out a couple pet stores in town. And, you know, anyway, got to do this. So my friend also owned a pet store too. Well, when Darren and his partner took over Morph Market, my first question and first call was to him, hey, I see this guy posting memes and all this crap and banning people. What in the world's going on? And, you know, my friend said to me, John said to me, he said, Jim, give the guy 6 months. He's in this to do the right thing. He goes, but I think he's gone about it a little too hard, too fast. And, you know, he banned Bob Clark right off the bat. And Bob helped me years ago get going. I wouldn't be where I am today without people like Bob Clark, Brian Barchuk. A lot of these people have been so good to me. And when I say that I don't have a high school or a college education, only a high school education, I got very lucky. I really did. And, you know, I've had good opportunities and good jobs. And I've met a lot of good people in my day. But I will say, you know, when I saw somebody was in a bad car accident, and then somebody was in a motorcycle accident.
Yes.
And Darren stepped and said, "Hey, you buy anything? I'll cover the shipping." And that was not his that was out of his pocket.
Yep. Yep.
So I think it's a different learning curve, and his goal is to get the bad people out of the business. And I think he got a little too strong because we just weren't used to it.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, I give the guy credit. I mean, he went on the Tap Talk and took a lot of shots there. The guy showed up in Daytona. The guy showed up at Schaumburg and stuff, you know.
Yep.
So, I mean, for him to walk out in the public when he had death threats, much less getting that shit kicked out of him. I mean, I give the guy a lot of credit. I like the guy.
I give him a lot of credit too, and I like him a lot too from a business standpoint. I talked to Darian way back, like 3 months before he made the announcement that he was purchasing Morph Market. We were talking back and forth on Messenger, and I don't know how the subject got onto Morph Market, and we started talking about, it should do this, and I was just laying it on, Morph Market should do this and more videos so people know how to ship and more care videos, and it would be great to have this. And he just took it all in and said, yeah, that would be a good thing to add to Morph Market. And then 2 months later, he comes out and says, well, I just purchased Morph Market. So then we had him on the Supreme Gecko show. I like him a lot. I don't know, Jim, some of the memes and some of the things that he did, what did it do? It drew attention. And what they say in marketing is any attention.
Good or bad, like training a dog. Dog wants attention,
people,
good or bad, just as long as it's attention.
As long as it's attention. And from a business standpoint, I think he's doing all the right things. From a marketing standpoint, you say what you want, but his views on Morph Market went through the roof.
Well, Wally's a little bit like you in the aspect that you came and asked me for advice and you did the stuff. So I didn't mind. I always helped you more and more all the time because I just wasn't talking to the air. I tell everybody, you know what? I really think the world of Wally because I gave him advice many years ago when the boys were little. I don't know how long ago, but it was a long time ago. And I said, he took that advice and I said, I would see him every show, whatever I gave him a suggestion to do, the following show, he would be doing it. And I said,
you're the
made me feel good.
Change.
Now, what's that, Nan?
You're the reason I had to make all those changes?
Some of them probably. But look at the money's just rolling in. I know it is.
Oh, yeah.
So, the bottom line is you don't mind helping people if they're going to take your advice. But, I get that with eggs all the time. People will call up, and they'll say, hey, I got eggs. I don't know what to do. I tell them what to do because I can tell people how to hatch ball python eggs to the point you cannot screw them up. And people say, well, that won't work. I said, well, tell you what. I've been doing it for 20 years and it works. The guy that told me, he did it for 50 years and it worked. So I said, if you do it my way, things will be fine. Well, guess what? They'll talk to me. Nope, that won't work. Okay, fine. Then all of a sudden, 10 days, 14 days later, they send me a picture. The eggs are, they're starting to sweat and blah, blah, blah. What am I going to do? What do I do now? I'm like, might as well throw them in the trash now because that's where they're going to be headed because that's exactly where they're going to go. I tell people, I said, tell you what, don't throw them away. Let them go bad on their own. Just go out and buy a thing of foot powder and try it. But I said, that's not really a fungus. I said, they got too wet or they got too dry. And then you try getting them too wet fast because if they get dry, they just don't dry out in a day. You can't rehydrate them in a day. It's like losing, it's just like losing weight. If you want to lose 80 pounds, you can't lose it in a month because you sure didn't gain it in a month. It takes time. But, I saw, some things that I thought Darren, I messaged Darren and the man is great. I mean, I don't know how many messages it gets a day, but a lot of them, I'm sure.
A lot.
But I gave him a couple of suggestions and you know what? He did both of them. I don't want to say what they are because I don't want the hate mail sent to me, but things that were really needed to be done and he did do them and it has helped. So, and I think the guy's open to all kinds of suggestions. The amount of money, I don't know. I probably shouldn't even say this, but I'm gonna. I've had people walk up and say, well, he's not making that kind of money off of bugs. Well, I'll tell you what. I know somebody that knows him well. I actually know the guy prior to him, the pet store that they own. His money's all made off of bugs in the pet store. These guys are legit, man, and they work hard. I mean, they've worked hard to get to where they are, and now they're enjoying the benefits of what they made. And you can't say this guy doesn't give back, because, I mean, my God, he's giving away stickers, or he's giving away cages. I mean, I'm not going to mention the guy's name. You know him too. There's another guy in Wisconsin here that I've seen those two guys battling all the time. And then the guy offers to send him 2 free cages. So, I mean, he doesn't hold a grudge either. I mean, in some ways, I think I need to be more like him.
It's hard. You know, the one thing that I will say about him is that he has a good business plan, you know?
Yes.
And you're right. You know, from the Dubia.com to Morph Market, everything is moving forward the way he wants it to. And I give him, you know, a lot of respect for that. I've got to jump over here, Jim, or else I'm going to forget it. Somebody said, and I can't find it now. Somebody said you tell great stories. And I 100% agree with that. The problem is that when you were telling the story about, you know, your involvement with school and everything,
I went down a different street, didn't I?
Well, I don't know, because you mentioned something about the pretty farmer girls, and all that I could think of was I've got to go to farmersonly.com.
Oh yeah,
my profile is updated because I think it's old.
You know, I'm actually still friends with these 3 farm girls too. You know, I stay in touch with them. That's a great thing about Facebook and stuff too. So
do they have sisters? Can you hook me up?
Yeah, but I know, Wally, you're pretty much
here
in your relationship. You know?
Here.
I mean, you never know, but as a guy with experience, Wally, don't even start talking like that.
Nanette knows I'm all bark and no bite.
One thing: when you got the best, forget the rest.
Yep, done deal. Absolutely. He's talking to you, Nanette. Okay, so. I'm going to ask a question, then I'm going to have you tell your story real quick here. J Bug is saying, can Jim tell me, we didn't ask this yet.
No.
Can Jim tell me what a GHI morph is? What morph is the only one I can find? That is the only morph that I can find that matches my ball python.
So GHI is a pattern morph. So believe it or not, GHI, what it stands for, a lot of times people, I don't know if that's exactly what they want to know, but GHI stands for got to have it.
Okay, where's my pen and paper?
Got to have it.
Got to have it.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that there's a guy on the West Coast that I can't think of his last name. His first name's Jeremy now. I think he was the first guy that I think he's the guy that named that, you know. So I mean, this is a big thing in the ball python game. If you name the world's first, I mean, if you made the world's first, you got to name it. So you know how I am with names, so I usually don't name stuff, but I call it what it is. You know, it's you know, instead of, you saw the paint pied tonight was the first one. I call it a paint pied because that's what it is. It's just not confusing to somebody, because I could say soul sucker. And people are like, well, what in the world's that? Well, it's a lesser hidden gene Walma combination. So some of the names are, you know, I mean, it's like the first one was a bumblebee, was a spider in a pastel. Well, then a humblebee was a hypoverge. And, you know, it just kind of got out of hand there a little bit. But I like to call things what they are so people can understand it, because otherwise it does get confusing for the new people. But GHI it's a codom. If you breed it to another one, half the babies are going to be GHI. But GHI stands for got to have it.
Unbelievable.
That was a great marketing thing. I tell you what.
Yep.
Took me, I think, 5 years later. You know, I can remember when I found out what it was. I can remember where I was and what I was doing. I'm sitting there. I'm like, yeah, who in the hell? Why would you name this GHI? What does that stand for? And there was a friend of mine's wife sitting at the table, and she goes, you know, it's my favorite ball python. And she goes, you honestly don't know what it is? I said, I know what they are. I've made a lot of them. I own a lot of them, but no. She goes, got to have it. So I'm like, oh. So then I kind of checked out the history of the thing, and she was right. Got to have it. That's what it was called.
Unbelievable.
So
You come up with something, you can name it whatever you.
I'm
whatever you want
assuming
to.
I'm assuming that some young kid maybe or said, "Hey, I gotta have that" or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
stuck. You know.
GHI done.
You know, I mean, go to your granddaughter Crystal. The things that she knows already and comes up with it just floors you. I mean, I'm sure it was kind of one of those same deals. Gotta have it.
I was telling somebody this story, and I'll tell it real quick. She's learning all the names of the geckos, from Lygodactylus to the crested geckos to the gargoyles, all over the place. One animal I keep is Chondrodactylus pulitzeri. Now that's a mouthful. So she had heard this name, weeks and weeks and weeks before, and we're walking past their tank, and just kind of a glance like that, and I know she didn't read the name. And as we're walking, and now we're past the tank, as we're walking, she says to me from just a half a step behind me, she said, "Grandpa, have the Chondrodactylus pulitzeri, have they had eggs recently? Are you getting babies from them?" It's like, how do you remember names like
I
that?
remember the day you posted that on Facebook. And I'm like,
unbelievable.
There's no doubt that girl is going to take over the business and it's going to live on. And that's the greatest thing in the world. That has to be the greatest feeling, because I think the ship sailed on the boys doing much with it. But,
yeah,
and that's understandable too.
Yeah, I've got a comment from Christopher I'm going to read right here in just a second. But again, I've got to point out, you tell great stories, and we're going to get to one in just a second that is my absolute favorite in the reptile hobby. Angie is saying, do you have any other hobbies aside from snakes? It's your
yeah, what's behind them?
Like last year when literally I went and bought a new sofa because I knew I was going to be sitting around a long time. I got the power legs. I got the Cadillac of sofas. Well, I was sitting there, and I've always been into stock car racing and stuff too, which your son did that for a while too.
Yep.
And if you look behind me on one wall, you see die-cast cars.
Yeah.
Now, that wall there is basically, and that's another wall over there that's around, and I got this U shape. So the ones behind me are all Matt Kensa was a Wisconsin driver, won the NASCAR championship.
Yep.
He was inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, first ballot. When I worked for Farm and Fleet for 14 years. And when I left Farm and Fleet to do the reptile thing, I was going to work a couple days a week at either the Swiss County telemarketing place in town here or collecting money at the gas station. The owner of Farm and Fleet, Jane Blaine, called me and said, "Hey, why am I losing you? What's going on here?" And I told her, I said, "Well, I've got the reptile business." She goes, "Yeah, I know." And she goes, what about insurance? I said, "Well, my wife works at the hospital, so I can get insurance there." I said, "I'm very lucky, or I wouldn't be able to do this." I said, "But I am going to work a couple days a week." And I told her what I was going to do. And she said, "Jim, no, your talents, that it would be a waste." She goes, "Can I find you a job?" I said, "I'll entertain anything, Jane, at this point." Well, 2 days later, I was working for a marketing company with DeWalt Tools. And I knew the guy that hired me real well. And I always figured that he hired me because Jane Blaine asked him to. And I was going to work for him for a year.
Yeah.
And then I would be fade off into the sunset. Well, I worked for the guy for just over a year, and we were at a grand opening. He says, "Hey, I'm not big into doing reviews or anything like that," but he says, "Let's go down to my car." He goes, "I want to talk to you about some stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, well, here we go." And, great guy. We go walking down, sits in the car, and he goes, "I'm looking over your expense account." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Yours, for the amount of time you work," he goes, "is 20% of what everybody else's is." And I'm like, "Well," I said, I myself, if I'm going to go eat lunch somewhere, I sure want, on your dime, I wouldn't go eat some fancy steak somewhere if I wouldn't do it for myself. That's not who I am." The guy handed me an envelope and said, "Open this when you get home and don't tell anybody about it." But I got a really good bonus, and that job lived on. And that's the guy that told me, came to the hospital and said, listen, you're not going to work for me anymore. But he called me one day, and all the guys I worked with, none of them were sports guys. They didn't follow baseball, football. They knew nothing. We went to a race one time because we were there working for DeWalt and stuff. And they all looked at me and they're like, wow, well, so how do you win this? I go, get in a car. The guy that, you get out ahead of everybody. The fastest one wins. Oh, that, I don't understand it. I'm like, well, what in the world is it with these guys, So I'm pretty big in the sports and stuff. Well, a year later, the boss calls me and says, hey, I need a guy, and you're just that guy. We have some autograph signings and stuff. I need somebody to go and represent DeWalt when Matt Kensa comes back to Wisconsin. So not only did I get to meet and spend time with Matt Kensa, but it was his mom who has passed away, his dad who raced years prior to him. Got to meet his son Ross, worked a lot with his son Ross that was growing up racing. His sister he had a free museum in Cambridge, Wisconsin that you could go to and see some of his past cars that he was in reps, sold his die-cast cars and shirts. A lot of the Kensa cars I have were given to me by Matt's sister. So, I kind of expanded when I said that I was sitting at home and I don't do things in a small way. I had maybe 30 of these die-cast cars packed away in a tote somewhere that, man, I had to look a long time to find them. But, now I have 647 cars.
Oh my gosh.
And the World Dirt National Races are tonight, tomorrow night, and Saturday night in at Eldora, Ohio. And I have friends there who are picking up die-cast cars for me there. So
how cool.
I got really kind of deep into them. So, my walls are now covered in, acrylic cases full of die-cast cars. So
that really is cool. Christopher had a comment that he and his wife Lacey almost bought Matt Kensa's old house in Cambridge, Wisconsin. That's kind of interesting.
That would have been great.
Didn't
I
know
would
about
want to go, depending upon I wanted to go and spend a night there. That would have been just like on my bucket list thing. I'm kind of a nerd that way, but that would have been cool.
That would have
But
been
Matt,
cool.
I'll tell you something about Matt Kensa. And not only, so when it come to working with NASCAR drivers, not only did I just be around Matt Kensa, I mean, there was Matt and his dad had a charity race at Madison International Speedway. And I got to sit at the same table with Tony Stewart, Kurt Busch, a lot of guys. But on autograph signings, people would come in. I remember the grand opening at Farm and Fleet in Verona. We gave away, I think, 300 tickets. Matt was going to be there for a couple hours. People came in that day, got a ticket, came back that night, and he signed stuff. And anytime a kid or an adult were in a wheelchair, they would come up to the table. Matt would get out of his seat, walk around the table, and kneel down alongside of them and get pictures and one-on-one with them.
Awesome.
And, I get teary-eyed thinking about it here. But, I think the world, I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But at basically the same event, there was another NASCAR driver who didn't have a line of people to get autographs. He wound up leaving early and, walked out on the event. And I can remember exactly what happened because the line of merchandise that he was advertising for and stuff, that was no longer available in Farm and Fleet the next time the contract was due. They replaced it because I can remember them saying, nobody does that to us, to our customers. So
I've heard the same thing about Matt. I had a very close friend that did a lot of racing and met him many, many times. And Mike would say that if it was a little kid, he'd get out of his seat, go all the way around the table and get down, and the kid's on his knee, and he talked to the kid, talked, and then signed, and then on to the next person. But Mike said he would not let little kids pass this table without getting out and talking to them. And that's what it's all about right there.
The day I handed out tickets to people, I had a guy come up and he had a couple die-cast cars and a couple of, coats and stuff. And he's walking around and he had a poster, and I could see, that I could see Metallica wrote on the outside of it. And I'm like, what in the world is this guy walking around with this Metallica poster? I mean, it was kind of the joke amongst us guys working outside, with tool demonstrations and stuff. And so that night, here comes the guy in line. Gets his die-cast cars signed, his coat signed, a couple autographs on stuff. And then he said, Matt, my sister had to work. She's a manager at a business, and there's no way she could get away. My sister drew this poster for you. And he opened it up. It was all hand-drawn in colored pencil of Metallica, the band, on stage somewhere. Matt looked at me and he said, Jim, get his name and stuff and get it on the poster. So, we had like Post-it notes and stuff. So I got everything. And that night when we were done doing the interview, we walked up in the manager's office at Farm and Fleet, and I had carried the poster up. I said to Matt, I go, that's really cool. I said, Snake, what do you do for something like that? He goes, I'm actually going to send her 2 tickets to the race in Chicago and a gift certificate to the store. He goes, I'm going to get it framed and it's going to hang in my house. He goes, I think that's the greatest thing in the world. He loved the band, and he knew that his favorite band was Metallica. And, I mean, that's just, most of my stories are 90% true, but this one's 100% true.
Jim, in my mind, all of your stories are true. I have to keep that working in my mind.
I'm going to tell the story that Wally's been waiting to talk about. And I got to say, I was at a Herp Society meeting one night, and Wally was going to be the speaker. So I thought, I'm going to go to this to make sure there's people. I took a few people with me. I wanted to make sure there was going to be an audience and stuff. I knew he was making the drive, and I wanted to be make this look very good for him if it wasn't going to be. And it was a good turnout. And I learned a few things that night myself. One big thing was on geckos, and because we do snakes now, but I bred dart frogs, I bred bearded dragons, I bred leopard geckos, gargoyle geckos, crested. I've done them all, basically everything, but basically tarantulas and a lot of the monitors and stuff. I haven't tapped into that yet. But you made the comment that night that now even if an animal isn't eating, as long as it has water, that is 80% of the battle. Yep. And I never thought about that. I did that, but I never thought about that to share with my customers. And I took that away from you that night. And then I also said, I had a funny story today, and I think this is the one. I had an email from a lady saying how happy she was. Her kids have always wanted to get a couple of snakes, but she couldn't feed rodents. She was so happy that she found one that would eat corn. She wanted to know if it had to be canned corn or fresh corn off of the cob. Drop the mic and walk away kind of scenario. And I had the hardest time explaining to that lady. It got to the point where I couldn't even put it in words. I asked her, I said, do you mind if I call you? Would you give me your number? And she did. And I called her and I explained everything. Now, I did sell those kids a couple of corn snakes. It worked out to the point where, they had a couple of setups and stuff. And I took care of the kids. I got them snakes I knew were eating frozen thawed. And, I did sell that household some pets. And it worked out really good because I did, see updated pictures. I mean, I sold the snake that hatched out was a twin. The other twin died, but it was like 26 grams. And most baby ball pythons are around 80 grams. And, it was just one of those that stuck with us. And, we sold it to a guy. And it was one where Jonas and I, Jonas came with the idea, let's put a hide in with it. We got her to eat. And then we finally got her to take off. We sold it to a guy a couple of months ago. And just over the weekend, he sent us an updated picture on Morph Market and said, look at this and how good it's doing. And Jonas says, I got him signed into the account too, so he can check emails and stuff. And, Jonas goes, that was just so cool to see that was. And he goes, that snake's kind of got a part of your heart, after it's almost going to die and you baby it along that much, So, and it's one that we probably would have kept, but, the spider genes and ball pythons is really frowned upon now. I bought my first one. I paid $12,800 for it.
Oh.
When it had the wobble, I contacted the guy I got it from, and he said, they all have that. He goes, it's just character. Okay. But, everybody bred them for years. I can remember, buying, I bought one. I bought a second. I bought a female because I wanted to make the super one. There is no super form, and we didn't know it then. It was so new that, these were the first ones. And, we were the learning curve for this generation.
It very similar to, for me, my personal experience with the, enigmas, the leopard geckos. I got into that project year 2 before all the, spinning and neurological issues, because it was, it was orange. It wasn't just orange, it was blazing orange. The reds were red, and they stood out so much from other leopard geckos. So it took time to realize what was going on, and it took time to realize that you couldn't breed it out.
I mean, Wally, I saw him at a show, and I saw him in Daytona, and I was just literally floored. I saw him on Friday on setup day, and that night I thought, I should have bought some, because you may never get the chance again. And I went back the next day, and we got things. Saturday was the day of the show, so I got everything all set up, lights on, and everything. I said, hey, I'm gonna run over and buy a couple geckos. I went back, they were gone. And now it's one of the best things I think that never happened to me. But I kind of sometimes wind up getting to be an impulse buy. But I had bred geckos prior to that, so I knew what was going on with them and stuff. But I do live in Wisconsin. I saw the question.
Yep.
I actually live as far in the southwest corner as you can get. I can leave here, and in 5 minutes I can be in Iowa, 2 more minutes in Illinois, and 5 minutes back home to my house in Wisconsin. I live just off the Mississippi River. As a crow flies, I'm probably 2 to 3 miles from the Mississippi River. So I have 4 stoplights in the whole county I live in. I don't think I've been a lot of places. I don't think I'd want to live anyplace else.
It's an interesting area, because I remember going to the show in Iowa, and other trips that I've taken, and I love that coming out of Madison, you're traveling and there's just nothing around until you get real close to the river, Mississippi River, and all of a sudden you're just
at the hills.
And it's just so cool. I don't know. It's something that was very, very cool to wait for that to happen for me. I've got to add to your story. I have to add this real quick. So when you told that story, when I was at the Madison Area Herp Society meeting, that was the first meeting I'd ever gone to, Madison, and you were telling this story about the lady and messaging you. It's not eating. Did you test the temperatures? Yeah. Okay, that sounds good too. That's still not eating. Send me a picture. And I'm going to do a Jim impression here. She sent me a picture, and in the corner of this tank was this much canned corn. She was feeding it canned corn. And I remember listening to this because you drew it out so perfectly. And when you said that there was canned corn poured in the corner, like cans of it in the corner of this tank, I was crying, laughing, visualizing this pile of canned corn for this corn snake. It was, again, the best story I had ever heard in the reptile community.
I mean, people reach out to me for help all the time. And, not that I don't want to help them, but I always tell people, I'm like, well, where did you buy it? And did you contact them? And it's not that I'm trying to brush them off, but, with ball pythons, I can tell you right now, we keep everything on baby ball pythons, aspen bedding. And so many times I get somebody that says, hey, listen, it's been a couple of weeks, but then I get the one that's, it's been 4 months and this thing has an 8. Well, where were you before? But basically, people have them on newspaper or paper towel. Now, I commend people that have them on white paper towel, because I don't care who you are. You do some kind of quarantine process, and that's what they were doing. And they were doing the right thing to see if it had any kind of mites or bugs. I mean, we do. I don't care who you buy stuff from. It can happen at a show and you can have the cleanest collection in the world, but if you're at a show and the guy next to you has got something, you may have it too. So you need to be careful that way. But I tell people, you know what? Just try putting it on some form of bedding. I think maybe just that smoothness, and you'd be surprised. 80% of the time, just that change in bedding will correct the problem. So simple.
Little
Or,
things.
you know, a lot of times too, it's a new place, and, you know, hedgehogs, my Lord, you know, they'll ball up in their, you know, a spiny big mouse that, you know, why would you want this thing as a pet? Because it hurts to touch. But it's all about getting used to the smells of the place. You know, my house is going to smell different than somebody else's. You know, human smell is different. And I always tell girls have an advantage. I tell them, take a piece of material, stick it in your bra and wear it around for, you know, that day. That night, put it in the hedgehog cage. It's going to get used to your smell. And literally within a day or two, they can pick it up. They can pet it. It's walking around their hand. It's not all balled up, you know, as a spiny mouse, they call them. So it's all in getting to know the smells. And that's the same way with, I think, anything. You know, everybody's changes and temperatures and stuff like that. You know, you talk to people that, well, so-and-so told me I didn't need any heat. Well, so-and-so was wrong.
It's always, I've said this over and over again. The internet is the greatest place in the whole world because you can search anything that you're looking for and find the answer that you're exactly looking for. The problem with the internet is that you can search any question that you have and find any bad.
You can find 20 different answers on the same question.
20 different answers. So what I say this all the time. One of my biggest pet peeves is somebody messaging me and saying, how do you take care of, how do you do this? How do you breed? How do you incubate? And then I give them a long spiel. And I kind of, you know, I'm a blabber, and I'll
Really?
kind of go through this whole, you know, scenario. And then, you know, the next day they'll come back and say, well, that's not what Facebook says. That Facebook says that you should do this. And it's like, yep, right. You're right. Yep.
No, you know, and I get people say, I want you to tell me everything you know about breeding corn snakes. Well, you know, but my business has, you know, been around 38 years. But when I had the pet store, we were breeding them there. I had another business with a gentleman who is now gone. You know, and he was all about the big snakes, boas and Burmese pythons. So we bred a ton of those at that time. And I decided to get into the smaller stuff, and he really didn't want to go that avenue. So, you know, eventually down the road, we did wind up splitting up. But, you know, I have a lot of experience, but, you know, I can't tell you everything I know. I forgot half of it to start with. I can't tell you everything I know in a, you know, in 5 minutes or an email.
But I know that you're willing to do that. If you felt like the person's going to take it, and you do, you know, from initial contact with somebody, you know that you assume somebody's going to take that and kind of run with it, or maybe can converse with somebody else and compare notes and everything, and you feel like there's value in that, and you're going to, I know you, Jim, you're going to do that 100% of the time. This is both the easiest and most fun part of the show and the hardest part of the show, because you messaged me before and said, what are we running? Like, you know, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. And I said,
well, when you said it was just going to be like an hour or something, I'm like, well, Wally will take up the first half hour then. And we get talking. There's no way they're going to do this in an hour tonight.
No,
why didn't you have me on Monday when you're doing that 5-hour marathon? We could have did it together.
Why didn't you come over? And we would have gone, instead of like 11 o'clock, we would have gone till 2 or 3 in the morning. That would have been a blast.
Monday was a holiday.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I didn't do anything anyway, but we could have done something, you know.
When we did the marathon, it wasn't, but Monday was the holiday.
Oh, I get it.
I have a whole page, and I'm organized this way. I have a whole page of questions here for Jim. Jim, did you start the business? Next step, where's Southwest? I don't care. We'll do this show number 2.
But you could ask, if you got stuff to ask me, I got a couple of minutes, I'll gladly answer them.
What I want to do right now, and again, this is both my most fun part of the show and the hardest, because it means that we're kind of winding down here, is we're going to play a game called, and maybe you've heard this before, Hit It or Quit It. Oh my gosh,
there's the
what
kitty.
A beautiful
Somebody wanted
animal.
to see a cat.
This is my daughter.
Aww.
This is Squeak.
Oh,
So,
okay.
What kind of kid is it? A certain type?
This is what you call an all-American farm kitty. We got her. I went to my friend's house, Laura, and she had lives on a farm, and male tomcats want to kill the kittens. So her sons went out. They had 3 mama cats. Each had 5 kittens. So she had 3 mama cats and 15 kittens in her house on a front porch. and this one wouldn't leave me alone. And so this is how I got a second cat, So
She's cute.
she
She's
came up to be part of
Aw.
the show. Now I do have another one. So if anybody that follows me on Facebook knows about, we have a blue munchkin. Now the munchkins are the ones that they're kind of like the wiener dog of cats, And his name is Smudgy, and we call him Larry for a nickname. But he's got short little legs. His belly's about an inch off of the floor. But it's funny because the girl will run in the bathroom and jump in the window, nothing to it. He goes running in the bathroom, goes to jump in the window, and he falls 2 feet short, face first into the wall. So you keep the seat down on the stool, and he can jump on that and then get in the window. But he's kind of the special breed one. I have a friend that breeds them, but he was not a show cat because the aspect he had a little bit of an overbite. So we got him for a fraction of the cost, but he is he's become very, very close. He's does everything with Jonas or I, and he watches what you do. And he's a lot, and I don't want to compare your grandkids to a cat, but you know how your grandkids watch and they know your routine. This cat knows what I'm going to do next. And a lot of times he will place himself in between you and that project, so you need to spend time with them. So I go downstairs
Kind of
now,
like I do.
and I take a snake tote, put a towel in it, put it on the trash can, and put him in it, and then I just wheel him around where I'm going to go, and he's happy. So,
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Don't do that to me.
Why not? Okay. You were talking about it.
You could do that. Actually, Larry, now I see you sitting in the chair next to me. Ask your question while I'm going to grab Larry. I'll be right back.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not going to go too far.
So here's what I think Jim needs to do. With the cat that's jumping and missing and falling short, you need to start doing some TikTok videos of that, and you're going to become famous.
Well, he has been in a few TikTok videos.
Nice.
One day he had a snake label fall off a tub and landed on his back, and he was spinning around in a circle.
Outstanding.
Hello, kitty.
Look at those people like you.
Seems very.
Jonas, you can go over here and sit down too. You got to see.
Jonas.
You got to meet Jonas too.
Jonas, where are you?
We talk to Jonas every show that we go to.
Wally, you would
Hey,
know
Jonas.
Jonas's dad. Timmy, that helped me back on the old Wisconsin message boards, Herp Oli, that's Jonas's dad. So Jonas has been around since he was a little kid.
Oh my
And then
God.
he worked for me when I was working for DeWalt and stuff. Dad told me he had to get a job one summer. He's going to make him to tassel corn. And I'm like, no, the kid ain't going to do that. So he went with me breaking down cardboard boxes, and I'd put one thing on a planogram on a peg and he'd fill it, so he carried on that way. And every manager that he was in at a farm and fleet store said, hey, am I going to be able to hire him later on? I'm like, no. So,
A couple of things, Jonas. Every show that we go to, you're always nice to every single customer. You're always smiling. You're always so pleasant. That's something that's striking to me, is because you're so receptive to people. You're so personable. It's just incredible. But even more incredible is that you're still with this old guy and doing things with him. That's crazy kind of talk.
Well, Wally, he did leave and he went to work at Batteries Plus Bulbs. So he had a really bad job at one time. So now he doesn't know how good he has it.
He had a worse job?
Now he does. Yeah. So, yeah, he had a worse boss than me.
Now I got one that micromanages.
Yeah, this one.
Outstanding.
So do I.
Yeah.
So
So where are we with the spreadsheet here with the questions?
Hit it or quit it.
Okay, we're at hit it or quit it. This is going to be fun. So what are the rules, Nanette? You tell the rules.
The rules are: we ask a question, you answer it without thinking about it, no explanations. You just give me a quick answer, and you keep your mouth shut.
What am I supposed to?
I'm going to ask you a
I
question.
just give you an answer, or I need to choose
I'm going to
between
give
a
you
couple
an
of words.
answer. No, I'm going to give you a question. You're going to answer the question without thinking about it a whole lot, and no
Okay.
explanation to it.
Okay, I'm going to go back over to farmersonly.com. So you
Yeah,
guys,
okay, you go ahead, Wally, and Nan and I will take over.
Good
All
luck
right,
for
go ahead.
that. What is your favorite food?
Pizza.
Jonas, what's yours?
Chinese.
Oh, good. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, Step Brothers.
Yeah, Step Brothers definitely.
Really? Our kids love Step Brothers. I have never seen Step Brothers.
Do you have a motto? And if you do, what is it?
We can't have anything. That's why we can't have anything nice. That's probably said about 15 times a day.
Yeah.
This is why we can't
That's-
have nice things or get off the counter. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you call that a motto.
Yeah,
That's
Larry.
just yelled a lot.
What's your favorite TV show when you were a little boy? Can you guys believe it? Wally is like quiet.
I can say Crocodile Hunter.
Okay.
I think when I was little, I think it was Gilligan's Island.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
old.
So I have a friend that constantly
talking.
calls me the
don't
skipper.
Yeah, his name's Jonas Grump.
Joe again.
Okay.
Why's he talking, Nan?
I'm guessing that this question is: do you prefer feeding frozen or live?
Well,
is this?
the question is
All
normally
it says is frozen
the
or
question
live.
is normally crickets, good or
Oh,
bad.
okay.
But since you don't really, feed geckos, it has to go over to.
That's a two-part question. So like the colubrids and stuff, frozen, they do real great with it. Ball pythons, and man, I'll tell you what, and it's controversial, but we feed live. We do feed some frozen. We can't get live, but we actually got. I had the same rodent supplier for 13 years. The guy went in to get a hip replacement, found out he had some other health issues, said, I'm done. I'm going to spend what time, whatever I got left, however this is going to work, I want to spend with my family and grandkid. Okay, fine. So then I had, 10 people say, hey, I'm going to be your rodent supplier. Well, I bought all the rodents from those 10 people and still never had enough. We read a lot of our own, but we're very fortunate enough that that this spring, I think, is when we first started with Chris, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So
The early spring, we actually got a friend that lives an hour away, so we can go down there and pick up. And now we get pretty much anything we want. So it's really helped me a lot. My animals are and swear to God, my ball pythons are in the best shape now that they've ever been in. So in 23 years of having ball pythons.
Wow. I have a feeling that like everybody in the hobby. You have all of these different connections all over the place.
I'm not old. I just experienced. You know that.
Yep.
But in all honesty, I do know a lot of people. I try to stay away from the bad ones, and I try to treat people like I want to be treated as best as I can too. And I know you guys do it too. So, our business models are a lot the same. And I remember, Wally, I can remember telling you too one time that, when you do something, I think you got to have everything that people need, and you started bringing that stuff. And what's amazing to me is we did the St. Louis NRBCA show in November last year, and I had a broken leg, hard time getting in and out of places. I tell you what, Brian Potter and Bob Ashley accommodated me. They gave me a perfect spot. There were two people together. I was next to Luke's Bugs, little Luke. Do you know Luke?
Yes, yeah.
You guys know who he is? Okay.
Sure.
So we spent, I was in seventh heaven. I watched this young kid do such great things, and man, I was so wound up. And we went to the auction that night, and he had donated a snake shed that he had mounted on a board. It brought $500, and I never seen a young man get so excited. And got talking to him and stuff, and his mom, and I asked his mom, I said, Luke he really likes scaleless snakes. I said, I got some scaleless rat snakes and stuff here. I said, would it be okay with you if I gave him a pair of snakes? His mom said, well, I guess we have cages, but because I hate to see get too much stuff. And no, if he wants them, we'll buy them. I said, no, ma'am. I said, no, that ain't the deal.
No.
Goes, well, why? And his dad goes, why are you going to give them to him? I said, because I can. I said, it's not about the money. I said, a few $100s here. I said, I watched what he did tonight with the reptile community. I said, that kid got up on stage and took the microphone away from Brian Potter and looked like he belonged there. I said, I can remember, I said, I've had to do a lot of public speaking in my day. And I said, man, the first 5 years of it, I was just petrified.
Yeah.
Even sometimes the night before, getting up in front of, 1,000 employees somewhere or something like that. And I said, I'd like to do it. And I said, I see what kids, kids want to do what other kids are doing. And you see what Luke is doing. So later that day, it was the last day was Sunday, I had Luke come over and I said, hey, I want you to pick this stuff out. And he's looking at me in the funniest way. I said, I'm going to give you a pair of snakes and we're going to do a project together. Because I said, I want to get to be your friend and I want to learn more about what you're doing and stuff. So lo and behold, Jonas and I went home with some stick bugs and some orchid mantises and, fruit fly cultures and the whole 9 yards. But that was one thing that I told them. I said, you guys should get into selling all the stuff that people need. You don't want them going to another table because you could do this. And I gave Luke's mom a few ideas on the containers they were making and, and they did, and they were very appreciative of the help. And it was so nice to see Luke at Schaumburg again. And then what happened at the auction, pair of geckos brought $10,000 probably at least for USR. So exactly what I said would happen happened, because when we were getting ready to leave Schaumburg on Sunday, we were over saying goodbye to them. And a kid walked up and got talking to Luke and stuff, wound up buying a bunch of stuff from Luke because he was going to start doing mantises too, because he wanted to be like what Luke was doing. And Luke's dad sat in the corner just shaking his head, and his mom looked at me. His mom gave me a hug. She goes, you were so right. You were just so right. I said, that's why I gave him the snakes. I said, I can afford to. I said, I want to keep this kid in the hobby forever. I want him to get an education. And I told his mom that too. And they fully agree. His dad's a CPA and stuff. But I said, even if it's a business, even business classes, to get something there to help later on, because I said, maybe he'll get into not only a breeding operation, maybe he'll have a whole reptile operation selling everything. Hell, maybe he'll buy a morph market next. You never know. He'd be good at it.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
Take the business classes. I get this asked all the time, and I'll repeat exactly what you just
And
said.
education is one thing that can never be taken away from
Yep.
you.
Exactly.
Especially business related. So what's cool about that story is that you're sitting back there and you see this pile of wood and you see all the leaves and the oily cloths and everything for the passion that's just kind of kindling, sitting there. You've got the match and you threw it right on that pile and ignited it and sparked that passion. And that's
this kid
thing.
Wally, I've been to so many shows and I've seen so many people. Man, this kid just blew me away, fascinated me to no end, and in all honesty, I think renewed a lot of my passion into things too. How could it not?
Yes, exactly. It's fun to see. You're fired.
I'm not fired. You
And
just started
Luke,
yapping
not
and
only
telling
it's
stories.
Luke he has two good parents behind him, and that's the same way with your boys too. I mean, I always tell people, Wally and Nan. I mean, that's like the Ward and June Cleaver. I mean, they're the all-American family. And I said, I watched your kids grow up, and my God, invited to weddings. It's like I'm the uncle that the kids never wanted or something.
Well, you were talking about books earlier, and Christopher came out with this comment. I don't read so good. Christopher, that's a reflection of your parents. You should be ashamed of
Not
yourself.
Mom, that's for sure.
I love your kids.
Yeah.
We do
sometimes
special.
too.
Jordan, are you
Oh,
still watching?
you two. You know what? I more so than a lot of people know. I know what I know, and then you know what? You guys. I mean, everything turned out great. Those kids are perfect.
Wouldn't
They're
say
good kids.
perfect.
They're good
good
kids.
kids. I wouldn't say
They're
perfect.
great kids. We love them a lot.
I see a lot of. Wally, you told me I know a lot of people. I don't always see great stories like that, but your kids all have done very well for themselves.
Thank you.
I'm
They're
proud.
very,
to know all
very
of
good
them.
kids.
They
We're
are.
very
We're
blessed.
proud.
Yep.
Very blessed with them.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, what is your favorite thing to do in your facility?
My favorite thing to do and when?
In the facility or in your rooms?
If you can't tell, there's going to be a follow-up question to this. Hint, hint, nudge,
What?
nudge, wink,
But,
wink.
you know,
Talking.
my favorite thing is probably just looking at animals. And I mean, I'll do this even with, I mean, I go downstairs tonight and see something hatched out and I'll sex it and I'm like, yep, we're going to keep this one. And I look at animals and just say, what can I breed that to make something better?
Yeah.
That's what I do. I mean, I'll just look at animals. I'll stare at animals and say, if I add this to it, or if I add that to it, or I'll reach out to somebody and says, hey, you've been working with us a long time. Did anybody ever do this yet? No, that would be a great idea. I'm going to do that, you know.
Then you come upstairs, you plug it all into your spreadsheet, and then you kind of do the calculations. Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
All kinds of stuff. And I got another one here. Wally, here's a pink one. That's really important stuff. Yeah, it's my
Starting
spreadsheet.
to
Wally.
itch.
If I knew how to do it,
this.
every year I ask at the high school if they're going to have a nighttime class, beginners for like Microsoft Word or something like that. I'd like to do that, but they only have wood shop class, and then I go there and build something that way. But you know, coffee table or something like that. But
man, we go squirreling this bad. What is your least favorite thing to do?
Sometimes it's selling the snake. I mean, shipping a snake that, you can't keep them all. But sometimes I think that's probably the worst thing is saying goodbye to something that, you've had here for a while and you got to let it go.
Okay, I'm intentionally going to jump in here because I think we're the same. I'm sorry. So you're shipping out these animals. There is not 1 ounce of you that's saying, oh my gosh, I'm shipping this animal out and it's too good for this person and they're not going to appreciate it. And I should keep it for myself because it's such a great looking animal.
I do some of that.
It's the opposite. It's the, I'm shipping this animal out. What could I have done with this animal? But I'll guarantee this: when somebody comes back to you with, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was so nice, or look at the babies. This is the female that you sold me 2 years ago. Take a look at these babies. Yeah. You're gonna go, that's it right there. That's what it's all about.
I do that with hedgehogs. Are the worst because you get one that's like got really cool markings and it's real special, and it's like, no, that can't go to the pet store. No, gotta find a home for it, And then it just like, whether you believe in God or not, I'm not gonna, go down that whole deal. You do what you want to do, but all of a sudden the next day you'll get somebody contacting you saying, hey, I'm looking for a female hedgehog as a pet. I actually had there's a big Kluber breeder by the name of Travis Whistler. I've known him forever. There's a guy that works for him by the name of Judd McClanahan. His daughter drove up from Oklahoma City to pick up a hedgehog because I had one that was it was a really cute little girl. She actually drove up from Oklahoma City all by herself, picked this hedgehog up, and went back to Oklahoma City. Petunia is now on TikTok or Facebook about every day. I see this hedgehog. I see it 5 times a week, probably for now the last year and a half. It's the greatest feeling in the world, by far the greatest feeling. Right now we have better animals, so we can't keep all of our adults, and I'm not adding more racks. Getting bigger in this economy isn't a good thing anyway. So now I'm selling some adults, so I shipped an animal to a guy yesterday. He got it today. And the guy started, well, can you tell me a little bit about it? I started typing on Morph Market. Then I realized that, I got a thing that's 12 inches long that I sent him about all the different clutches she had. I still have 6 of her daughters in my racks because she was so good. I've got her granddaughter and her great-grandson's going to be my new male next year, my axanthic male, my main male and stuff, and it's kind of good. And you get a lot of these people, that, man, I didn't think it was going to be this good. We had that the day before. Guy bought 2 adults, calls me up and he said, your pictures are junk compared to what they were. And these animals are big enough, they're ready to breed now. I'm like, yeah. I said, I've been sick. I've been in bad health. I said, the animals got fed. They just didn't get bred. They're ready to breed now. Why? He bought 6 more animals. So, a lot of it's word of mouth or people see and stuff like that. But, animals that are good to me, I try to make sure that they go someplace where they're not just going to be somebody's piece of whatever they paid $400 for, and are they going to take care of it or not? Some of the stuff you want to make sure is going to somebody that's going to do something good with that. So
bye, Emily. Robert says that he wants a hedgehog as a pet. I'm only 30 minutes away from you.
Don't have any babies for sale right now, but check back.
There you go. Bye, Emily.
I'm easy to find on Facebook.
Yeah. Yep.
Last question. What music are you listening to when you're working with your snakes?
Beavis and Butthead.
People say,
that's cool.
You see this on TV? Well, here's the deal. I listen to a lot of TV, or a lot of it's, like, and I'm telling Wally, we're talking about music. I said, literally, you and I grew up in the best generation. I mean, last year, Jonas and I, basically last minute, somebody had tickets for sale. We went to see Joan Jett and Poison and Def Leppard, and we saw the concert in Milwaukee there, and it was amazing. I'd seen everybody more than once anyway, but it was still great to go see the variety of ages of people there. We grew up in a great time. AC/DC and Motley Crue. I mean, I've been to a lot of Motley Crue concerts and stuff. So.
Say what you want about Ted Nugent, but I've seen him many times. And one of the best concerts imaginable. Just crazy.
Wally, I've seen the Kiss farewell tour at least 15 times. Yeah. Whether they're with
outstanding.
We went to Nancy and I went to see him at Tinley Park. Kiss and Motley Crue. Great concert, but then they're back for the farewell. Kiss now is having an end of the road tour, but we got other obligations that day, but
I bet you Kiss is a wonderful, wonderful concert.
That's the first concert I ever went to. I was 16 years old and I begged my parents. They weren't going to let me go. They finally caved in and let me go. I went with my cousin on a bus trip to Waterloo, Iowa, and I saw Kiss. They won Entertainer of the Year that year. They stopped the concert to accept the award on national TV at the concert.
Wow.
So
are you saying that was your first?
That was the first concert. That would have been like 1977.
J-Bug says that I was security at Tinley, met Kiss too. Wow, that's crazy. My first concert was, speaking of Ted Nugent, it was Ted Nugent, Journey, Heart, and I want to say Cheap Trick too as the fourth band, but that was at the old county stadium, the old Milwaukee Brewers facility. But that was a good concert. Okay,
that wasn't a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a question for you, Jim.
Yes.
Can you give our viewers that are thinking about getting into snakes or starting to sell, getting into the business end of things, can you give them a couple of pieces of advice that would help them kind of get over that hurdle of, I don't even know where to start to try?
Okay. That was kind of a couple of parts. I'll answer all of them you want, but which one you want to do first there?
Help me, Jim. I've kept snakes for a couple of years. I'm starting to breed. I have babies. I want to start selling them. I'm thinking about doing a reptile show. Can you give me a couple of pieces of advice to help me here?
You know what? You can be professional without, having 10,000 animals and things like that. If you show up at a show, have good business cards, first off. Not something you printed at home. Maybe not the $9.99 Vistaprint. Sorry, Vistaprint. But, maybe get something a little bit better when you're a little bit new to this. I did that with And back in the day when price lists, man, everybody waited for a price list to come in the mail, man. That was the greatest thing, the spring of the year. Everybody sent out the price list. There was no internet. There weren't even any shows, basically, to speak of. But I think look professional.
Yep.
Dress halfway decent. If you can afford a banner, get a banner. No matter what you have to work with for displays, make them be the best that you can make them be. If you can't go out and afford to buy, $5,000 worth of heated next level displays like I have, you can still find something that'll work. Look professional. Go to a show. I mean, before you set up at a show, go to a few shows, see what other people are doing, what you like. And probably the biggest thing is find some kind of light. I don't care where you are, you need a light on your table. I have a best friend in the business. I'm not going to say his name. If you know me and you know where I was in Daytona for every year, you know the guys next to me, but the guy never has lights and he don't sell stuff like he should. He's got the best animals. I mean, he makes the best albino ball pythons of anybody in the world. And, but he doesn't have lights. And lights make a difference. You don't have to buy expensive ones. I mean, you can buy clamp-on lights with a nice light bulb for $10. I mean, that'll make a lot of difference. Have good deli cups to display your animals in that people can see. If you can't afford displays, good clear deli cups.
Yep.
Even if, you don't want to order 500 somewhere, a lot of times you can go to a local, if you got a hometown grocery store or butcher shop or something, maybe they would have some they would sell you. And I can remember when I started out, man, punching holes in deli cup. You had to go find a card punch because you have something small enough, like you wanted one with the diamonds on it, and you're punching. Be sitting there watching TV, punching deli cups till you got a blister, and then you quit and do it a couple days later. There weren't punch deli cups back then, but I think that's the biggest thing is do your research. Look professional when you go to a show. Make sure that when you put animals out there, if they got stuck shit, get it off of them. If somebody pees or poops in their container, have another container to put it in, clean it out. If an animal is not 100%, if it doesn't look good, don't put it on the table because you're going to be judged by that.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, years ago, the milk snakes I showed you, Pueblan milk snakes, they all weren't that pretty one with all equal bands that you see. There'd be some that were 90% black, but you never put that on your table. That was under the table. When some guy came up and said, "Hey, I got a pet store. Would you sell me anything wholesale?" You'd say, "Hey, yeah, I got some stuff here. I'll sell you You would sell them that stuff. Now somebody had the idea, "Hey, let's take all these ugly snakes and breed the red color. Let's make all the dark ones, and let's sell them for 5 times more." And by God, it worked for them. But it just
amazing advice. I liked every single piece of that advice. I'll reiterate just a little bit here. Do whatever you can. Don't feel like you have to go full tilt with the big banners. Do what you can, but be professional, be clean, healthy animals.
Promote your business in a professional way too, as best you can without getting Facebook jail and stuff like that. It's tough, but I mean, I've seen people take the tax return, go buy a couple of big snakes from somebody, make babies, go to the show, throw them on the table, and think people are just going to hand them money. No, not going to happen.
Exactly.
There's more to it than that. And I mean, Wally, look at all the stuff you do to, to promote your business and stuff, man. You're one of the best,
It pays off in the end. And I think that, as you kind of alluded to there, you do something bad, it's going to come back to you. You do something good, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but hopefully, people start recognizing that, or, time in and time out. Hopefully that kind of catches up a little bit. I've got to go back real quick. Jonas, you're working in the facility. What do you listen to? Are you listening to Jim's AC/DC and Kiss and Joan Jett?
No, we have TV. Well, I have to listen to that in the van, but we have TVs, so we listen to a lot of different TV. So Beavis and Butthead was the serious answer. Since Paramount has started the new seasons, so on Wednesday, with the holiday, this is actually our rodent cleaning night. But so normally what would happen is we clean the rooms, we go in the baby room, and we put on the new Beavis and Butthead and make him listen to it probably 20, 30 times. He can probably quote most of it now.
But Wally, he's not being 100% honest. When he's down there by himself, and I walk in, he's watching the History Channel and stuff like this. This kid, actually, my mom was born in 1940, her and her twin sister. We were with them on Labor Day. Jonas was telling them things about World War II, stuff that blew my mind.
Wow.
This kid knows, he watches a lot of stuff about World War II. You know, why certain generals didn't do good. He watches a lot of history stuff. He knows a lot about World War II. But I got to go back because Kristen Booker made a comment that said hi to Jim and Jonas. And
Yeah.
Kristen Booker, I knew her when she started out and stuff too. And I used to make fun of her because she got a big retic. And I told her, why in the world would a girl like you get a retic like that? It'll eat your cats and dogs or something, you know? So I always had a lot of fun. Now she's got a spouse and stuff, and they're both into, animals. And it was so funny because they actually hatched out a really nice clutch of king snakes. And I reached out to them. I said, hey, I want one of those. You got a male, let me know. I really want one bad. So her partner, Jade, sent me a message. Says, hey, here's the two males. I said, well, I want the bottom one. Yep, no problem. We'll bring it to Chilling Park. I'm going to give it to you as a gift. I said, I appreciate that, but no, I have a lot of snakes. We'll trade something. So I'll get rid of something that way too. But you meet so many good people in this hobby. And those two girls, I just had to mention them. They've been customers forever. They've been around the Wisconsin reptile shows and business for a long time too. They're both good ladies. Both great.
Good people hanging around for a long time in this hobby.
Well, we actually had a lady, Janet, that she lives, I believe, in Burlington or wherever, but she couldn't make it to the show because she had to put her mom and dad in a nursing home and stuff. She had issues, couldn't get to the show. So actually, we delivered the snake after the Sewerfest show to her. Somebody that's been a customer that long. I had somebody one day drop off a guinea pig in a cage and stuff. Guy said, feed it to your snakes. I just can't. The kids ain't doing anything with it. I just don't want it in the house anymore. Well, the guinea pig was not just the normal. I couldn't do it. So I reached out to Janet and said, you got guinea pigs and stuff. I'd like you to have this. She goes, what do you want for us? I don't want anything. I didn't pay for it. I said, I wanted to go to a good home. So she drove all the way down to pick it up and stuff. But you meet so many good people, and a lot of people say, I can't believe that you would, after a show, don't you want to get home? I'm like, well, yeah, I want to get home. But man, if I can help somebody out that's been a friend, that's what I said about the show in Madison. That was just like a group of our friends getting together, man, that we let the public come in and see what we do. Richard Allen, go to his, you saw your deal about going to his store for the first time. Man, that guy, when he opened the store and quit his job, I was so worried. Was he going to make it or not? I offered Richard animals. Richard, you just take anything you want here, and when you sell it, pay me for it. He said, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm not going to do it. I don't do things that way. If I don't have the money, I'm not going to buy it. And that's the way Richard is. But boy, he is so successful at what he's done there. Now he's gotten into real estate and a lot of things. I watched his little girl grow up. She got married now and stuff. And, it's just like we got a good group of people in this state. We really do.
We do. And it's good to see good people doing well as well, to see his store and how clean and the animals were just beautiful, just perfect. I'm going to go back to Hit It or Quit It one more time. And we're talking about history and watching the History Channel, but you also mentioned that you watch Beavis and Butthead. So I've got a demand of you right now, Jonas. I want either your best Beavis impression or your best Butthead impression.
Are you threatening me? I am the great Cornholio, need of the TV for my Bungholio.
Yeah. Let's clean.
That's what.
8
hours. 8 hours a day for 6 days in a row. That's what you wind up with. Smudgy Holio.
That's usually what happens.
No.
This cat. If people knew how much money I've spent on these two cats, they'd think I'm completely nuts. But you know what? They're like my kids and stuff like that. And what's amazing, you can spend all the money on cat toys, but you know what? You give them a bow off of a Christmas package and a cardboard box. That's what they want.
That
You know?
and a 1-year-old. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
We
Same
don't
deal
buy
with little
presents
kids.
anymore.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. So tell us, Jim, you mentioned a little bit, but how can people get a hold of you? If they have questions, if they want to look at your animals, if they want to, and Frank, you've been unbelievable with sharing that link to Morph Market, but how else can people get a hold of you? And Jonas, Jim, how can they talk to you and find out what kind of animal you have?
Facebook under my personal name, Jim Stelpflug, is probably the one I post the most on. And now that Instagram and Facebook are the same deal, I think everything I post on Facebook goes to Instagram too. And, I do have a business page, but it just never really took off like I wanted to. And that's probably all my own fault. But, we do post, we got a clutch or something. We don't post everything, but we get something that's unusual or something like that. We post. And a lot of times too, people see the babies and they'll reach out to you and say, hey, is that going to be for sale or something? And, yeah, it is. It's a way to sell on Facebook without selling on Facebook.
Yes.
So
there's ways around it.
If you see me missing for a while, I'm fine. I have another account called James Jr. Stelpflug. There's my backup account when I'm on my 30-day suspension for advertising snakes on Facebook. So
that is a really, really good idea. I don't do that, and I'm always worried about the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas. I'm looking for the link to your Morph Market here. Frank, if you have that, go ahead and post that. Frank does a great job with moderating. Yeah, it was to Jim's Morph Market. I'm still, here it is. Got it. I don't do the business page as much as I should either, and that's a shame. But it seems like everything's changing, almost by the minute now with TikTok and Instagram for a long time, but TikTok now. So,
I mean, people will come up to me at Tinley Park or Arlington, Texas, and say, "Oh, how's Butters doing?" Or people would bring me dog toys or cat treats or something. I just love how you interact your cats into your reptile business. And so I like seeing the cats, or how smart, are you going to get another cat or, whatever. I mean, my dog was fantastic, and he still is. He's with my aunt, but, it's just totally amazing that, I think when people have reptiles, most of them are dog and cat owners too, a lot of them. And I think once you meet people, you said it earlier that, I don't know if I have customers. I think I have just a lot of friends that are people that bought something from me, even overseas people too, I'll see some guy from Belgium will walk up to me in Daytona and say, I remember you. You're the guy that used to have the big packer. I had a 10-foot, one of those lawn ornaments that inflates, that blows up. When I first started going to Daytona, I mean, you're in a place with, 600 vendors or something, and you're just one little guy that nobody knows, and you're from Wisconsin, and there's nobody big from Wisconsin there at that time. So I had that big inflatable packer guy that we put up behind our table. And, I'll never forget Chad Brown that owned Pro Exotics, played for San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. So Chad and I became very good friends. And, getting a picture with him in that packer and inflatable was one of the hardest things, but I got it done, but people will remember that. And now people walk up and say, oh, hey, how's your cat doing? Or, hey, where can I buy one of those cats with the short legs? I want to get one of those short-legged cats, So, I mean, I think the business page just seemed to be not me. It was a little bit more formal, where, if you don't like my cats and you don't like my dog, that's okay. You can go buy your snake somewhere else too. I don't care. I mean, I want to sell to anybody that wants to buy, but I have refused, to sell to a few people too, that I just knew it was going to be a problem, and I mean, the new generation of people, it really opened my eyes on some of the stuff that I've come up with Morph Market. Last weekend, I don't know if you saw the post, but the lady was making a big deal over, she had to have everything frozen and they wanted to breed ball pythons. And I said, getting a baby ball python needs something frozen may never happen. I said, you're going to do so much better if you breed a few rodents and stuff. And, and she just refuses to breed, want to breed rodents or feed live. And I flat out told her, I said, I just don't want to be the guy that's going to tell you something that's not going to happen. She goes, well, you think I'm squeamish, don't you? I ate my own placenta. And
I'm sorry, but I was out of the conversation at that point. I was swiping right as fast as I possibly could.
I didn't see it at first. Jonas and I went to a stock car race in Davenport, Iowa, and Jonas goes, what did you think of that? I'm like, what comment? And Jonas told me, I said, I was eating a bag of Cheetos at the time as he's driving us home. I said, wait, what did you just say? And I went to look, and I'm like, I didn't even respond. I was done. We were done. That we're done right then and there.
I was gonna say I need to go eat dinner in a little while, but I'm not hungry anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, it's a great diet thing, Nan.
Yeah.
You stick with me for dieting.
I'm gonna have to keep that up. Yeah. Oh.
Personal trainer and dieting, I'm good at that. So
I don't think I have anything else to ask you, nor do I want to anymore.
Well, I got to close with something here.
Please.
Okay, all you folks out there that you follow this man forever, I can tell you right now, I've recommended him to many. I mean, not 100 people, not 200. I've recommended him to probably 1,000 people. I've never once had somebody come back, and this is rare, but never once anyone has told me, it just didn't work out or I had a problem or anything like that. I've known the man forever. He came to me for advice. He took a lot of my advice. I seen what he did. He's been very successful. It's not because of me. It's just I've helped him a little bit as he's helped me. We're just two old guys that help one another. And, I can't tell you enough of the good things that he's done for the reptile community in Wisconsin. Hands down is probably, right up there with Bill Stewart and the people at, the Madison Herp Society have done a great thing too. We've got good people. We've got Gary DeMeyer, just to mention, Kyle Hoffman. This state's got a lot of good people in it, and I'm sure we got some great other people out there. I don't want to, shun anybody, but I'm talking about snake people that I deal with on a regular basis. So you won't meet anybody any better than the guys that I named.
Jonas, now's the time that you can stop him and just kind of silence him. So all the
we got a clean rodent shut tonight, so we'll be together for a while yet.
Out of everything that you just said, Jim, that's all BS because I'm just the man behind the curtain. I do these lives 2 hours a week. Nanette does. She's on the computer, on Facebook, on TikTok.
But that's not true. We know better than that, Wally.
For me, it's like, is it 6:30 on a Thursday night? I better, let me put on my hat. And I've got
before the kids all ran off, they would always come to the show. I would meet Nan on a rare occasion. I thought you were a single bachelor for years, until the boys said they had a mom. So
the way I acted, right?
Yeah, it could have been part of it too. So
I've got to check that site again.
But no, I mean, we're lucky. We both know a lot of good people. We really do.
We do. And
I think anybody that's following you, I've been asked several times, and I've really turned people down or made excuses or something like that. But when you ask me, I'm like, I can't say no because we've just known one another too long, and I knew it would be a good thing. I would really enjoy it, and which I did really enjoy it. And it was nice. Jonas came up with the idea of just bringing up a bunch of random snakes. I didn't tell him to bring it. That was all Jonas' deal. So,
And people were asking for that, so that's great.
Yes.
So, I mean, this way you got to see a few snakes and stuff like that. And if you ever want to do it on another time, I'm open to that. And maybe sometime this winter or something, we can see how it works out. We do a little test thing and see if we got good connection and stuff. I have no problem showing you around my snake room or something too. One of them.
Okay. That is outstanding. I would love to have both of you guys on for part 2. This has been special to me. And everything that you said about us, it's all a reflection of you, Jim, because again, the basis, the foundation was established.
Well, I'm going to tune in next week because your guest next week has really got me. He's a good man. And
How about that?
And I'll tell you what, anybody that you need to watch the show next week, because if you want to learn, this man's on top. He's going to be the king of these new Cuban anoles and stuff. I seen some of the stuff he's doing. It's amazing.
So I've talked to Ron a couple of times about Periodora pickups, and we've gone back and forth, and he's shown me pictures, and I said, hey, Ron, would you mind coming on Supreme Gecko and talking? He goes, I don't really do geckos anymore, but if you want me on, that'd be cool. And then it was like, oh, you don't do geckos? Oh my gosh, what do I talk to you about? So join in, Jim, and you can ask him tons and tons of questions, because I'm going to probably go, Ron, those anoles are super cool. Okay, I don't know what else to say.
Back in the day when I had the pet store and stuff, we would get that stuff in, and you'd see a rare colored one, and nobody was doing anything with this stuff. So it's just amazing. I can remember, importing baby wild, ball pythons, captive hatch ball pythons out of Africa, and it was just crazy. I would get 500 baby ball pythons in from Africa to go through the bags and see stuff and keep stuff. And, I did a few things right in the beginning. If I could go back and do it all over again, I'd surely do a few other things different than what I did, but you just didn't know, and that's just today, it's like I said, the people starting out today, you have much more an advantage because you can buy rheostats, you can buy manufactured cages, you can buy manufactured racks. That stuff wasn't there when I started. We had to build everything. So that's why you took your pride in, you built displays to sell at shows. I can remember, making everything out of pine boards and fitting everything, and then going and buying a paint that was called Flexstone. It looked like granite, and you would spray that on and clear coat it, and everybody would come to the show. And I can remember selling my displays at many shows. At the end of the day, the displays were never going home with me. They went with somebody else, and I would build new for the next show.
Oh my gosh.
So, and people said, you should get into manufacturing this stuff and, incubators and stuff. But I was too busy working another job and with my animals. I just didn't want to be that factory building guy, because I thought my animals would suffer.
And you didn't want to gamble on some of the things, but again, we go back to the time of heat rocks and things like that. And everything's changed so dramatically, and a lot for the better.
Yep.
You guys, thank you for joining us, Jim.
Thank you for having us.
No, I really, really, really appreciate this. And, we talked about Ron coming on next week. I'm thrilled and blessed to have Ron on, but I'm more than thrilled and blessed to have you, Jim.
With Ron, you're in the major league now, boy. You went from the minors tonight to the major now, man.
No.
He's a good man. He really is. And I think it'll be a good show, Wally, because I think he can tell a lot of, stories. And one of the greatest things I ever had was picking Dave Barker up at the airport one time when we had a Midwest Symposium and driving him from the airport back to the hotel. The stories that man can tell, and he'll tell you right up front, 70% of his are true. But boy, he's got good stories.
If only you could tell a story, Jim. This would have been a good show. But it is what it is. It is what it is. We'll leave it at that, unfortunately. So try to work on that, okay?
Well, 9:30. You said this take about an hour, huh? Wally,
is this the
longest show you've ever done? Is this the longest?
This is the second longest show we've ever done. The first one was the marathon 2 Mondays ago, where we went 5.5 hours, and that's all because of Frank the Tank. But this is my second longest show, if I'm not mistaken.
Holy cow!
And again, Jim, I didn't touch any of these questions over here. Not one, maybe one. Well, and I feel like we could go for 3 more hours without even.
I think we could. I need another bottle of water and maybe a granola bar or something, or a yogurt. But we'll.
This is tea. I need just the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and end the show now before I start dancing, Frank.
Yeah. They say that the bladder goes first when you get old. So
yes.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you very much, Wally. I
Thanks.
greatly appreciate it, my
Our
friend.
Good
pleasure.
seeing you.
Anytime. Bye now.
Night,
Good
folks.
night.